Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning to you. Welcome to the show. It's just approaching 3 minutes past 10. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense. Thank you so much for your company. As always, whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, on your smart speaker, whether you're watching on YouTube or your connected device, it's just great to have you join us. We always appreciate it. Always appreciate you getting in touch as well. Some fantastic calls this week. I mean, you know, you got a high standards to pick up to, but I'd love to hear from you about any and all of the topics we are talking about today. But I've got to be honest with you, there's a few topics that have really, caught my eye today. We are going to be talking about the stabbing rampage at a North London school that left two boys aged 12 and 13 seriously injured, reports to be one of them stabbed in the neck or in the back, fighting for their lives. Imagine sending your 12 or 13-year-old kid into school and them getting stabbed in the classroom by, it is alleged, the suspect who is actually being caught by the police is a 13-year-old boy as well, believed to be possibly a suspended pupil. Now, crucially, the crime is being investigated by the counter-terrorism police, even though they're not calling this a terror attack. Why? Well, because numerous witnesses claim that the 13-year-old suspect, who is behind bars, or in a police cell, shouted Allahu Akbar at the time of the stabbing, which would suggest it was an Islamist-motivated attack. But of course, we have to be careful about these things. And while the rest of us would obviously say, sounds like a Islamist terrorist-motivated attack, police still aren't quite sure. I'd love to hear your reaction to this because, you know, if you're a parent like me, mine's off to uni now, you know, so I don't have this issue. But the idea that this happens at your kid's school, that said, a school not too far from me, a 12-year-old was stabbed by two 14-year-olds, allegedly, in the last year. I mean, you know, I didn't feel too safe around the local schools in my area. Got to be honest with you, try to avoid walking down the local high street when the kids come out of school these days, because frankly, it's not worth the hassle of having to deal with them and get around them. But I want to know what your reaction is, because it seems to me, guys, we have a bit of a problem in this country, and maybe it's something that everyone should stop skirting around. Now, whether it is adults committing these crimes, and oh, by the way, let's talk about the spike in anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic attacks since the attack on the Manchester synagogue. I mean, it's a bit of a giveaway, isn't it? So when two Jews are slaughtered by an Islamist attacker, then people think that, oh yeah, this is a time to, you know, launch anti-Semitic attacks against other Jews. Does that not tell you there is something horrible going on, and an awful lot of people in positions of authority and responsibility, whether it's the police, whether it's politicians, whether it's mainstream media, just want us to shut up and stop talking about it, because the problem is us talking about it rather than the actual problem itself. That's the thing. I want to hear your thoughts. Give us a call on 0344 499 1000. Text us on 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs £1. Standard network rate message. I mean, we'll just ignore people who are mates with paedophiles. We'll just ignore people who are committing mass rape against young girls because they're white and they don't think they're of any value. We'll try and hide the grooming gang issue away. What else? I mean, sorry, anything else you're hiding? Anything else? Oh, I'll tell you what they're hiding today. Mainstream media. The sex of the person who has killed 10 people and injured 25 others in a mass shooting at a school in Canada today. A female wearing a dress with brown hair is how the perpetrator, the gun person, they actually used the phrase, the gun person was described before they turned the gun on themselves. They weren't a female, they were a man. They is a man. He is a man. He is a boy who identifies as if he's a girl, but he's still a boy. This is a male crime. But you wouldn't know that from watching the BBC, ITV, Sky News, or reading their websites today. Nope, most of the newspapers as well. Still talking about Either we don't know the identity or no confirmed gender, or they're still talking about a female killer. I'm sorry, these are not women's crimes. We need to start being honest. And here's the thing. We've got the authorities, whether it's the police or the politicians, and we've got the media playing along with it, all happily covering things up and telling blatant, open, provable lies to us. And we're supposed to just go, OK, carry on. And if you go, hold on a minute, that's not true, or why aren't we talking about the real issue here, then we're the problem. Isn't that the problem? That they keep identifying us as the problem rather than the perpetrators of these crimes and the people who cover them up and apologise for them? Give us a call. Want to hear your thoughts. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Also going to be talking about Keir Starmer. He's pitching, class warfare is his latest effort to protect his leadership. It's not going to work. He's going to do P&Qs against Kemi Badenoch and everyone else today at midday. We'll be taking it live. And I can't imagine it's going to go very well. Lots more to talk about. Lots of issues there with Epstein, the probe going back 25 years, and the small matter of a former spin doctor to Keir Starmer as well, who's facing some questions. But let's talk about all of this with, I'm delighted to say, my guest joining me today, as always, and she is Claire Pearsall, former Conservative Government Advisor. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I mean, I waited on a long time there because I'm sodding angry. No, I'm sodding angry that anyone goes to school and gets either knifed or shot or bullied or anything. You just want your kids to be able to go to school and be safe. That seems to me to be a bare minimum requirement in a civilised society. What do you make of this stabbing rampage at this North London school in Brent, though? 2 boys, 12, 13, seriously injured, in hospital fighting for their lives. And a teen suspect in custody. Counter-terror probe, but they don't know if it's terrorism. It wasn't necessarily a terror attack. They don't know yet, even though numerous witnesses have said the boy shouted Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, and that's come from some of the students at the school who witnessed this.
Yeah.
And you've got pupils who are 12, 13, 14 years old watching somebody stabbed in the neck at school in a classroom, and reading through all of those pieces that in various different outlets. Horrendous what those kids have been through. They go to school to learn. You don't drop your kid off in the morning or send them out the door in the morning expecting this to happen, and this is now becoming the norm, and it's really frightening.
It's certainly not shocking in the same way. Well, it sounds like it's a suspect. If reports are claiming that if this is the suspect, again, we've got no one.
We don't know.
We don't know. But the person, the boy who has been arrested was believed to be a suspended pupil from school. The schools. Schools have been told to try not to suspend pupils anymore. There's a reason why kids get suspended.
Yes, I know, and it is very difficult to do that. I'm a governor at 2 different schools. It's incredibly hard to permanently exclude a kid, but also how did he get on site? I think there's a lot of questions there, but what can you say? I'm not surprised, and that's the really sad aspect of it. You read the news alerts coming in, it's another stabbing in London, and you just think, oh, here we are again.
That's the thing. I'm not shocked by it. Again, okay, it's front page news today. Yeah. It is. There are plenty of these crimes that aren't front page news. That's the extraordinary thing. I find it extraordinary the police are saying they're not sure whether there is a terrorist motive.
But again,
we'll be told there's mental health problems. Well, that's what we'll be told. Same with Axel Rudakabana. Yeah. Mental health. It's always mental health, isn't it?
It is.
To a certain extent, Islamist extremism is, I believe, a mental health problem. If you think that because of your religion, whatever it is, that you should go around killing innocent people, you're mental.
Yes, you are. But we're not going to be told in time. And what I find really frustrating in all of this is that we'll be told absolutely nothing. Yeah. So we're sort of left in the dark. We're sort of left to fend for ourselves.
Once charges are brought, especially.
And I understand that if there's going to be a case, but I think that they need to be a lot quicker at getting some details out there, especially for the parents of kids at that school.
Yeah. But also, we have a problem. We have a problem with a radicalised society. We have a problem with anti-Semitism figures showing a spike. Again, so when do you think it might be, more or less hideously inappropriate to taunt and harass and attack a Jewish person in this country? Oh, immediately after 2 Jews have been killed in their own synagogue by an Islamist attacker. I mean, that's what happened after the Heaton Park synagogue attack last year, according to these latest figures. I mean, we're looking at 10 anti-Semitic attacks a day. This is being normalised. Who's doing it? Sorry, who's doing it? We've imported Islamist extremism and anti-Semitism to this country. It's infected the left of this country. They were happy to play along. This is all part of this victim. Who's at the bottom of this victim pile? and they've decided that Jews are at the top, and white people are pretty near the top, and Muslims are absolutely at the bottom, and they're the people we must absolutely know, and trans people. If you're Muslim and trans, you tick every box.
Tick every box.
But then they've literally decided this idea, and therefore they do not report these crimes. They do not report these concerns seriously. There'll be all these people going, "What about the threat of the far right?"
Yeah, but
that's what they'll be saying.
How many anti-Semitic attacks does it take to be worthy of some attention? Because it just feels to me at the moment everyone just goes, "Oh yes, isn't it terrible?" and then they move on, and it's like, yes, it's terrible, people have died, it happens on a frequent basis, you're not being truthful about the numbers, and you're not doing anything about it.
Yeah, exactly.
What country are we living in?
Well, exactly, and again, it's canary in the coal mine stuff. It really is. Everyone needs to wake up to that. And also, well, again, and it does affect everyone else. Bobby's been forced to cut back some beats to 3 or 4 days a week because they're having to spend so much time policing protests. What are those protests? Well, the biggest protest they have to police every week, every fortnight, is the Palestine action protest. Of course, you then get time off because they're working on the weekend doing these protests. Yes. I mean, basically, we're not getting properly policed. We've got a spike in other crimes, bike theft, shoplifting and all that, because police aren't around dealing with these things because they're busy dealing with a load of people who are shouting hate on our streets. I'm sorry. There's a theme to a lot of this, people. There's a theme.
Exactly, and in the Telegraph there's an interesting stat. We're arresting 1,000 people more a month at the moment in London due to these protests. And you just think, 1,000 people, right? Where are you putting them? What are you doing with them? It's making absolutely no difference to the events that are taking place on the street. Meanwhile, burglaries are happening, people's bags get nicked, bikes get nicked, cars get trashed, and we're all just supposed to go, "Oh, well, that's okay because it's the right to protest." And I'm fully in support of a right to protest, right up until it starts to affect the majority like this.
Well, again, right up until when you're just a hate march rather than a protest trying to change anything. Let's also talk about another case. This is a case that's definitely got no limitations of what we can say, because it's actually been a conviction. An Afghan asylum seekers. I know. That thing that never happens has happened again. An Afghan asylum seeker, Ahmad Mulakil, he's a 23-year-old Channel migrant, has been convicted of abducting and raping a 12-year-old girl, abducting her, sexually assaulting her, taking indecent photos of her. 10-day trial at Warwick Crown Court. He saw the child in a park. He abducted her, attacked her in Nuneaton in Warwickshire in July last year. He'd arrived just 4 months earlier. He's yet to be sentenced, but he would face automatic deportation if, as expected, he receives a prison term of more than a year. I'm never convinced that judges are definitely going to do the right thing anymore. And yes, automatic deportation doesn't mean automatic deportation. We know that because loads of them are still on the streets. Someone who's come here has been treated as if he's somehow a victim, and he's an asylum seeker. He's arrived on the channel. We've had to use massive resources to bring him in. He's been put in a hotel, put in somewhere, not locked away, not in a camp, not deported straight away. And what has he done? He's abducted and raped a 12-year-old girl within months. Well, that's the one he's been caught for, by the way. I don't know why people are assuming that's the first child he's raped. What about any other child he tried to rape? Or, I mean, he just suddenly got the urge that day, did he? I'm sorry, I don't accept that. We've got enough of our own wrong-uns.
Yes.
We don't need to import any more. These men, and they are all pretty much entirely young men, they're coming to our shores. They need to be either, let's talk about it at the same time, sent back immediately, literally, pick you up in the boat, take you straight back to France. Your France's problem. If France is stupid enough to let you in, that's between them and their voters. And if we're not going to do that, I say put them on the Ascension Islands, put them in camps. I don't care. 10 to a bunk. I don't care anymore. I don't want them on the streets. Full stop. End of. And the British public has had enough.
And I think that's the real difference. Is the conversation has changed. I spoke to a bunch of people yesterday who were quite liberal on immigration. Right up until this has all started happening and it started being reporting, and they've just gone, "Oh, do you know what? They should just go. Can't we just send them back now?" I know
lifelong Labour up bleeding hearters who are literally like,
lock them up, send them back,
close the border.
It's
but again,
really interesting.
Not a controversial view, not a right-wing view, not a far-right view, not a fascist view. It was always the norm that we all thought it was a bad idea for people to break into our country illegally and to be able to stay here and to commit crimes and
get away with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people are now seeing, and it's an abundance of crimes being committed against some really vulnerable people.
The thing that never happens keeps happening.
Absolutely.
I mean, literally, like once a week we're seeing these people. And by the way, lots of the time we don't know that these people are migrants.
No,
we're not told.
weren't told.
That information is often not given, and then someone tells off a counsellor because a counsellor has revealed it.
Yes.
It's best for community cohesion if we don't know the truth.
And you just think it's not really, is it? It's best for you wringing your hands in the corner. The rest of us just want to know.
We're grown-ups. We're
can
able
deal
to know
with
the
it.
truth. We really are. Well, okay, let's go back onto the mass school shooting. We talked a lot about politics this week. Let's talk about these crime stories. Again, the main things you need to know, Yeah, this is a school, in a small town, Tumbler Ridge. It's a small town, British Columbia. It's got a population of about 2,500 people. It's tiny. So six people found dead inside the school. The perpetrator also shot themselves, and then we've got others who were found at the home, we believe, of the suspect. The suspect was found with a self-induced gunshot wound. The police initially said the shooter was a female in a dress with brown hair. The motive remains unclear. But all the media reports today were very clearly about this was a female shooter.
Yeah.
Now, I've only been around a few years. Might have done my training as a cub reporter, as a news reporter quite a long time ago. But there are certain things I hear and I think, oh, that sounds unlikely.
Yes.
A female mass shooter. Quickly looked up the stats, right? There has never been, mass shooting means only 4+, right? 4 is a lot of people killed, but there's never been a female mass shooter in either Canada or the UK, and in the US, where they have a lot of mass shootings, roughly 4 or 5% are women, okay? And nearly always that's actually involved a male perpetrator alongside,
yes,
okay?
Yeah.
So immediately my spidey senses said to me, I bet this isn't a female shooter, wearing a dress or otherwise. And you can see from the language, you think, oh, I know what this is.
Yeah.
This is going to be a trans person. Let's be specific. It's going to be a male identifying or dressing as a female, as a woman, because apparently a dress makes you a woman. And everyone's got a bit uncomfortable because God forbid we should use the wrong pronouns about a bloody mass murderer. I mean, that's the territory we're in. So the police, and, this is a small town. People in the school telling their parents they know who the killer was. Identified really early and long before all the breakfast shows were on the telly today, long before the BBC Radio 4 programme. And by the way, I'm messaging all these people going, this is a man. This is a man. So I believe, by all accounts, a 15-year-old boy who's gun mad, and also very confused and now thinks he's trans. Great combo, people. This is just the latest in a spate of killings by trans-identified people in North America. We have a problem there as well, but no one wants to talk about it. Here, Brianna J, a trans-identified boy was killed. His mother still refers to him as a her. He was a boy. I'm sorry, it's a terrible thing, and was targeted by two other kids who are behind bars, thankfully now. The police and the media did not stop talking about the fact this was a trans victim, even though the trans aspect had very little to do with the actual killing. This was very clear in the court transcripts. This shooter is trans, male trans identified. Nothing to see here.
And I think that was it. I sort of woke up to the headlines, and immediately when you see female in a dress, at any point in any kind of reporting do you get a male suspect wearing trousers and a hoodie. You don't get that until much later when people are filling in the details. That's not the most immediate thing. So you knew there was something wrong about it. And I just get so angry the fact that this is a small town. These people will know who it is. I live in a small village, and trust me, I know most people.
Whose kid was it? It was,
and they will have met, so they'll know about this, and it's absolutely horrendous. But let's not pussyfoot around the fact that this was a confused boy dressing up as a woman. You can't entertain that it was female in the slightest.
I mean, the worst thing, the thing to focus on is that a bunch of innocent children have been, and no doubt teachers as well, have been slaughtered. Yeah. It's absolutely awful. But it's very important that we are clear about facts. Yeah. And when people are news reporting, and genuinely, I kid you not, Amal Rajan, one of the presenters on the Radio 4 Today programme, we reported on this, actually said on air this morning, actually said, a lot of reports, social media is not the place to go for reliable reporting on this. Au contraire, actually, social media is where this first emerged.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and I didn't put a post about it until I'd seen enough posts by people who had clearly done proper verification, who'd spoken to members of the family, who have a track record on these things, as opposed to some random conspiracy theorist. I'm sorry, the idea that the entire staff, the many thousands of news staff at the BBC, didn't see a report about a female killer, mass killer in Canada, and didn't go, are you sure? Yeah. I bet it isn't, and didn't do the research. That they could have done that research themselves, and they didn't. They didn't. No. Because God forbid, we don't want to talk about it being someone trans who's committed a shooting. God forbid, we don't want to talk about a boy shouting Allahu Akbar, allegedly when stabbing two other children in a London school. All the things they don't want you to hear about are the things we need to be talking about.
But of course we do. We need to know what's going on. We need to understand what you're dealing with. And those facts are just that, fact. No, we're not expecting them to voice an opinion.
No, exactly. Look, we're going to be talking in just a couple of moments about where we are politically as well. But we talked all week about Epstein and Mandelson and Keir Starmer. Yesterday, Keir Starmer's former spin doctor, Matthew, now Lord Doyle. He's been around for years. I mean, everyone knows Matthew Doyle in Westminster. It's a very Westminster story. He's been suspended as a peer over his links to a sex offender counsellor who he campaigned for, who was accused of having downloaded indecent images of a 10-year-old girl, and other paedophile images. He denied it. According to Matthew Doyle, he asked if he was his friend. He denied it. He was suspended as a Labour candidate in a local council election, but Matthew Doyle went and campaigned for him after he'd been charged, but before he was convicted. And he was convicted after a guilty plea. I'd like to point out, most of the men who are convicted in these scenarios when they have guilty plea, the guilty plea is for just a small fraction of the photographs and the images they actually have on their computers. Just saying. That's how it's done, because it just gets it through the court very quickly. But usually this is the tip of the iceberg. Now, he believed his friend. Was it a good idea for him to have campaigned for him? Should he now lose his peerage? Talking about this Act of Parliament. I think we're getting into a little bit Salem witch trial hysteria here.
And it's a really difficult one, because unfortunately it's coming on the back of all of the Peter Mandelson stories. So it looks like the government has...
Well, no, but this story's been around for quite a few months.
Yes, it has, but it seems like there's a pattern around the Labour Party. Now, should he believed his friend, Matthew Doyle believed his friend, and then when he found out he had nothing to do with him, I just think that we're in danger of, as you say, I think we're in danger of just pushing these people and to say anybody that you've ever had contact with. Yeah. I've probably come across people and spoken to people who have done bad things, but it doesn't mean that I'm a mate. But also,
if that person said to you, honestly, I think it was very poor political judgment for him to campaign for him. I would say, you should stand down. He campaigning for him as an independent. I believe campaigning for an independent when there's a Labour candidate would actually mean you're suspended from the whip, the Labour Party anyway.
It would for the Tories,
But we got investigation into Mandelson's Epstein links going back all the way to the Blair era. We're talking about going back 25 years. Like, what the hell was he doing in government? What was he leaking to Epstein all those years beforehand? I mean, genuinely, the plot is thickening on this one. We are going to find out some horrific stuff, given what we've already seen. Bearing in mind what we've seen from those Epstein files, tip of the iceberg stuff again. We're talking about the stuff that's not redacted. Of the 3 million files, that's a fraction of those files. Even if you think these people were prolific messengers and emailers, right, with knowing millions of people, right? Even like, if you're like a normal person living a normal job in a normal life, if all of your messages, all your emails, everything were like in files, you'd have millions as well. These are going to go back extraordinary. Keir Starmer, though, trying to do the fight back. We had all this utter nonsense about how brilliant he was at the Parliamentary Labour Party meeting on Monday. We had Carl Turner, Labour MP, defending him and his passion and all this. Yesterday, he did this speech in front of people. Just, again, they've got to stop doing speeches in front of ordinary people who cannot keep up the pretense of giving a monkeys.
Exactly.
But he's talking basically about class war. And let me be very... He used this phrase, let me be very clear. Whenever he says that...
Don't.
I want to punch something anyway. But he basically he's going to stand by, and then the left are absolutely convinced he's now going to lurch to the left. I mean, and keep his support. The whole thing is just an absolute joke.
He was also in Hertfordshire It's not a particularly sort of dangerous place to go, is it?
The mean streets of Hertfordshire.
Exactly, leafy Hertfordshire, and he went out there and it was all everybody else's fault. I'm the real Keir. And you just think, how many resets do we get? How many versions of Keir Starmer do we ever need to
How
see
bad
again?
is PMQ's going to be?
Oh, bad.
I mean, he must be prepping. I mean, I can't believe he's getting anything else done today other than prepping for it.
But I also think there's a level of arrogance that he believes this is now closed. He believes that he survived.
Yep. Good luck with that, mate.
It's Wednesday.
Good luck with
I
that. And still want your calls on this. Give us a call on this issue. How long does he survive? What do you make of this former spin doctor? I think we're getting into Westminster territory. Again, everybody writing these articles in newspapers and talking about on the telly all know Matthew Doyle. I know Matthew Doyle. I've got Matthew Doyle's number in my phone. So, I mean, should I... I'm not going to get a peerage, but should I lose a peerage because I know Matthew Doyle and he campaigned for you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think we're getting into completely different territory here.
As well.
And that's in no way to say it's okay to be mates with someone who's downloaded pictures of a guy like that. Of course it's not. Anyway, I do want to hear your thoughts on all of this. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Up next, going to take your calls and lots more to come. This is Talk.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back to the show. 10:30 is the time. Let's get straight to your calls. 0344 499 1000. First time actually calls aren't all about Epstein and Mandelson and Keir Starmer. Let's go to Jason, who is in Wiltshire, on that school stabbing at the school in North London. Jason, good morning to you.
Morning, Julia. And yes, Schwarzburger is the best place for a burger.
It is. I know he knows Bath because my mum was his GP. I worked at the one. Can't even remember the name of the street now. Not the one right in town, slightly out. Seriously, I crave them.
It's a night out in Bath and a Schwarzburger on the way home.
Always. And we were talking with, this is, by the way, if you just tuned in, we were talking with JK about your first job, and mine was chopping onions and garlic on a Saturday afternoon at Schwarzburger.
Well, at least you worked, Julia. That's the main thing.
Absolutely.
You didn't sit on your arse, did you?
Can we say that? Don't say that. Anyway, Jason,
Okay.
what do you want to say about this school shooting?
Yeah, it's about the school shootings. First of all, I just like heart, our thoughts and everything are with the victims' families of,
Absolutely.
what has happened. There's a little sort of issue, I think, that's not helping the situation, and it's called Sadiq Khan. Mm-hmm. What he's brought in with various things with two-tier policing, if you even look at an ethnic minority, or you want to search them for something, there's gangs, you search them, you can't do it. He's really not helping the situation. What he's done, I think, is given all these gangs the upper hand to almost sort of, you can't touch us, we can do what we want.
Yeah, I know. I agree with him. We don't know whether this was a gag or anything. But again, there is two-tier policing, I think, across the country now. But you notice it particularly in London. I just don't think there's any doubt about that.
But when somebody shouts Allah Akbar, that's not just sort of Fred blogs in the playground doing that. That is some sort of radicalised.
Yeah, I mean, again, we know, God is great, is a quite, something you could be saying that in a mosque as a perfectly peaceful Muslim, going about your daily life, worshipping your God, and you're entirely entitled to do that. But if it's something that is shouted whilst wielding a knife and stabbing it into someone's neck, as is alleged, I think it means something else. And if that is something that's been shouted at virtually every single Islamist terror attack, I think we're entitled to say we think that might be the motive.
Yeah, and also what I would like to say is I've not actually heard Mr. Khan sort of comment on this yet. I thought we might have heard him, at least show some sort of interest in it. But again, you can't, because it's racist. If you know what I mean, the bloke's he needs to go, and we really do need a mayor that's going to sort of stand up and sort London out, because it's a common daily occurrence. It seems to be stabbings in London with gangs, but
no, exactly. I said there's a stabbing near a school near me. I knew he has messaged. He has actually tweeted in the last 27 minutes, he's talking about our London Violent Reduction Unit, the first in the country, tackles the root causes of crime by giving young Londoners opportunities and breaking the cycle of violence. Prevention saves lives. Not entirely sure it's got anything to do with what happened there, but there we are. Thank you for that, Jason. Appreciate that. Let's go to Cindy now in Michigan. Again, talking about another school attack, but this time a shooting rather than a stabbing in Canada. Cindy, what do you want to say about this?
Hi, Julia.
Hi.
I want to say, you know what? There's only two sexes. There's male and female.
Yep.
But what happens here, I can put what's going on in the world, even in the United States, I can tell you in a nutshell. You're either trans. So if you want to talk about the truth and facts don't care about your feelings, by the way.
Yep.
And also, okay, so you're either transphobic. You want to talk about the Allah Akbar, your Islamophobia.
Yep.
If you want to search somebody who's ethnic on the street, like a police officer who wants to search them, you're racist.
Yeah.
You chose me because I'm brown. There's a lot of that going on in the world.
Yep.
And we got to fix that by talking about the truth.
Yep. Again, I don't care whether the facts offend somebody. The facts aren't the facts, and you can't address certain crimes. You can't tackle them if you're not talking about who is perpetrating those crimes. Cindy, couldn't agree with you more. It's mad. Look, it's mad in Britain, it's mad in Canada, and it's mad in the US as well. And what a surprise! That's where these things are happening. Who knew? Thank you very much indeed for that. We'll take a quick break. Then we're going to talk to Chris Phillips. He's the former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office, and find out what he makes of it all. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:36 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk. Claire Pearsall, from former Conservative Government Advisor, is also still with us, and we're joined right now by Chris Phillips, former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office. He's also former Detective Chief Inspector in the Metropolitan Police. So with all those hats on, Chris Phillips, you are the ideal guest to talk to about, well, this spate of crimes we want to talk about, and the crimes that are not being tackled because police are dealing with marches. A very good morning to you.
Good morning. Yeah, community cohesion means that the police need to act in a certain way, have been acting in a certain way, and it's not working.
It really isn't working because there's a bit of a giveaway, isn't it? Now, we're told all the time, aren't we, by Sadiq Khan, the London Mayor, just got a bit of a digging from one of our callers, that, crime is going down. Actually, well, no, violent crime is, and other crimes like, phone thefts and shoplifting are actually going way, way, way up. Look, the sort of crimes we are most terrified of is not having our phones stolen. It's our kids going to school and not coming home alive or ending up in an ICU unit. We've got a 12-year-old boy and a 13-year-old, both stabbed by, it is alleged, a 13-year-old suspect who shouted Allahu Akbar in the science block of a North London school in Brent. This is Kingsbury High School in northwest London. Screaming children seeing all this, hearing him shout Allahu Akbar. Numerous witnesses have said that. Police have got they call them the counter-terrorism unit, but they have not declared that this is a terrorist incident. Why not?
Well, it's all about the motive, and yes, you can shout Allahu Akbar, but the motive may be something completely different. It may be a revenge. We just don't know.
We think he might have been a pupil at the school who was suspended. Some of the reports are claiming.
Yeah, and we do need to, leave the police to just do the investigation. I have no doubt that the investigation will come out. The person's motives, this kid's motives, will come out in due course. But it is a scary thought that so many of our youngsters are walking around with knives these days. I mean, we mustn't live in a dream world to say that London was always safe. And, back in the 80s and 90s, there were lots of murders and stabbings and robberies going on. But now, of course, it is multiplied by social media. It is this knife thing that has changed.
Yeah, I don't recall. I mean, I went to sixth form college and primary school in London, but it didn't. But not the rest of the time. But I just don't recall this ever being an issue. Don't remember anyone ever being scared that if there was a punch up in the playground or anything, that a knife would be drawn. No one ever talked about having metal detectors. I mean, okay, it's a long time ago, but I'm not living in some fantasy 1950s creation. This wasn't a thing in that time in normal sort of leafy parts of our capital city or anywhere else. It just wasn't an issue. And again, a lot of parents just are now really scared about sending their kids to school. Or indeed, and I've got to be honest with you, I say there's a stabbing of a 12-year-old kid by 14-year-olds allegedly in a school near me, my local high street. If I want to go out and do stuff during a weekday, I make sure I do it before the sort of 3:30, 4 o'clock mark when they're all marauding along the street, because frankly it's mayhem and they're quite aggressive. I think most people now are just getting a bit wary of marauding teenagers and what's going to happen if, you accidentally walk into them or if someone's carrying a knife. But our kids are having to go to school with these people.
Yeah, it's a multiplier effect, isn't it? Because what we've seen is the police disappearing from our streets. Control by parents has reduced dramatically. We now have kids who are running households and not the child in the household. Yeah. And we've got a criminal justice system that no one's scared of. In our day, Julia, you would have been scared of.
Oh my God, yes.
And you would have been scared of going to a court, and you would have been certainly the thought of going to a court and potentially going to prison would have scared the life out of you.
I'd have been scared of going home.
Yeah, disgrace. That would have been a disgrace. That is not the case now. And to some extent, society is to blame for this because we have stopped the police from doing stop and search. And listen, any stop and search is a difficult thing to do. You're going to get it wrong some of the time. But if we don't have that, we don't have visible police officers, we don't have a criminal justice system that works, then we're going to have this multiplier effect of kids being scared or carrying a knife and stabbing each other.
Yeah, well, we've got another case, teenage boy who murdered a 12-year-old Birmingham schoolboy, Leo Ross, by stabbing him in the stomach. completely random attack. He's been detained behind bars for a minimum of 13 years. A 15-year-old, he was 14 at the time of the attack, can't be named for legal reasons. He pleaded guilty to murder at the hearing in January. He's also admitted to 3 separate attacks on elderly women, so he's a delightful little soul, this one. But during sentencing at Birmingham Crown Court, he was basically, it was a serious violence against different people, culminating in that fatal stabbing. And he was just walking home from school when he was stabbed. This is the thing: these kids are walking amongst us. There are adults walking amongst us also committing these crimes. We've got the latest case of a Channel migrant being convicted of raping a schoolgirl, within a few months, a 12-year-old schoolgirl within a few months of arriving in the country. These stories just keep on happening, and people are feeling like our streets aren't safe and the police aren't doing anything. Well, what a surprise, certainly in London. We've got police basically not able to be out on the beat as many days of the week as they usually are, because they're spending so many of their resources, and that the police officers, week at work, is spent policing major protests. What are the major protests that are happening in London every other week? Palestine Action, requiring thousands of officers. So they're not free to be on the streets to keep the rest of us safe. This is untenable.
And there's already too few police officers. There's not some magic box of police officers that they pull out when there's a demonstration, or even when there's football matches, to be honest. These are the same guys and girls that are walking the streets, or should be walking the streets on a daily basis. But Julia, I remember 20 years ago the police chief, the ex-police chief of New York, came over to London, and we were talking to them about gangs and and he just laughed at us and said, "You haven't got problems with gangs." But now that problem is becoming much more of an issue, and kids are joining up with gangs because they're scared of being attacked.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, again, I've got a lot of sympathy. My daughter wouldn't be carrying a knife because she's not worried literally about going from home to school and being knifed. And lots of kids are feeling that way. It doesn't excuse it, but it's understandable. They are more scared of the other kids with knives than they are of the police or going to prison. And they know they're not going to go to prison anyway. Who are we kidding? What is the solution? Because we're told it's not stop and search, when I think stop and search, and certainly the mums of the kids who are carrying knives or at risk of being stabbed, they're very keen on stop and search. There's got to be something, because I simply don't accept that this is just one of those things we just go, well, these things happen. I think this is something that's actually much simpler to do with. The police know who the wrong uns are. They know who the gang leaders are. They know where they hang out. I don't believe for a moment, if they really had the will, if we really had the resources, they couldn't deal with this.
No, they could deal with it, and we, police have been dealing with really bad people for many years, and if you have the resources to deal with it, then you can do that. This starts actually, Julia, and it's such a boring old thing, community policing. Yeah. Police officers. I was in charge of a community unit in Clapham, and the amount of intelligence they would bring in. And then there were teams behind them that would be able to go out and carry out surveillance and arrest. If you break down that first aspect of, you don't get the intelligence in, so you don't know what the problem is, then, and all the people that are committing the crime, then you're never going to have the resources behind it to deal with them either. So we do have to, unfortunately, fund the police, give them the powers that they need to do to stop this crime, but actually put a visible presence back on the streets, which allows people to be able to seek refuge or to give advice and information. Absolutely. It's just that simple, isn't it? Chris Phillips, always so good to talk to you, former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office. Thank you for that. Claire Pistol, you were an advisor in the Home Office for a number of years. What do you make of what you had to say? And I think he's absolutely spot on about community policing. And when you speak to anybody and say what would make the difference in your area, they say, we want to see bobbies on the beat. Yeah. And I know that feels like such a 1970s phrase, but actually there was a reason why they did it. Yeah. I mean, genuinely, I don't know why there isn't a police officer on every local high street when kids come out of school. Yeah, and who can call him back up? That would honestly, that would be safer for the kids. I'm sorry, but once they know who they are as well, that's the point. Yeah, it's just they'll know that John or Susan is the one doing the crime, so they'll. Yeah, obviously you've been watching too many Netflix documentaries. It's John and Susan. 10:40. Susan's a female in a dress. No, I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just nonsense, isn't it? 10:46 is the time. Up next, we're going to talk about what the hell is going on in Westminster. What's the latest on the fallout of the Epstein-Mandelson affair? And is the Prime Minister on, reset number what? We'll find out from the political editor of The Sun, Jack Elson. That's up next. This is Talk.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from number 10. Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:48 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk. Let's find out what on earth is going on in Westminster today. We're just an hour and 10 minutes away from PMQ starting. I can't imagine the Prime Minister's looking forward to facing Kemi Badenoch or indeed anyone else in the House of Commons, especially with many of his cabinet behind him, who, let's face it, studiously silent for some, 24 plus hours when he really needed their support before, of course, doing their sort of hostage style. No, we really support the Prime Minister tweets. Let's talk about all this with the political editor of The Sun, Jack Elsom. A very good morning to you, Jack.
Good morning, Julia.
Thanks,
how are you?
Joy, very well indeed. Well, I mean, we had, 5,227th reset from the Prime Minister yesterday. He came out fighting, we're told, at the PLP, the meeting of Labour MPs on Monday night. He's back at it. He's talking about tackling class warfare and all of that, and he's feeling strong. Is he stronger or weaker today than he was on the weekend?
No, without doubt, he's weaker. And clearly he managed to survive that day of turmoil and treachery on Monday when we saw Anna Sarwar knife him in the front, and that sort of mirage of a cabinet rallying round. Often, when there is a jeopardy towards their leader, you do get this sort of superficial circling of the wagons. I remember they did it exactly with Boris Johnson when the leader of his Scotland party, Douglas Ross, called for him to go. And then within 4 months, he was out in his ear as well. And we do now get that sense in Westminster where he has burnt through every last crumb of political capital. He has no goodwill left, and that any manner of scandals now could really be the final straw that upends his premiership. And there are many danger points in the days, weeks, months ahead, whether it's a by-election, whether it's that massive release of texts that are going to come out in the Mandelson files, whether it's the May local elections, or maybe just some unforeseen event which happens, which eventually pushes him over the edge. And that could well be sooner rather than later, because now he's facing another Labour peer lost in a sexual offences scandal.
Well, yes, let's talk about this, because this is very different from choosing to appoint Mandelson to this highly important role as the ambassador to the US, despite knowing his very close friendship, best pals with Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted, prolific paedophile. And he was friends with him for many years. Now, this is a very different affair. We are talking about Matthew Doyle, now Lord Doyle. And look, I was saying a bit earlier on the show, he's well known to everyone at Westminster. He's been around 4 years as a press officer, communication advisor. He was a director of communications for Keir Starmer, who's one of his former spin doctors. He's been suspended from the party. Now people are talking about removing his peerage, because he was offered a peerage after. Now I'll bring you in here in terms of what is it he's alleged to have done wrong?
Well, so Sean Morton was convicted of several sexual offences, having images of very young children.
And he was a Labour councillor, this guy.
And he was a Labour councillor up in Scotland. Matthew Doyle, after he was arrested, I believe.
And charged, but not convicted.
Arrested and charged, maybe not convicted. Sorry, I'm getting the timelines a bit muddled here. Continued that relationship with Sean Morton. Now
campaigned for him on the doorstep, put out photos. But my understanding is that Sean Morton was not able, because he'd been arrested and charged for these child offences, paedophile offences. He'd been removed from the Labour. He was not allowed to campaign as a Labour councillor. He campaigned as an independent, and Matthew Doyle campaigned for him, saying, since he assured me of his innocence. He then pleaded guilty. And is now convicted, and he's sort of saying it was a mistake and he's broken off contact, blah, blah, blah. But there seems to be a lot of pressure that he should lose his peerage now. He's not sitting with the Labour whip in the House of Lords. But this is a very different issue from, say, Lord Mandelson. Is this going to mean that anybody who had any contact with anybody who's done something wrong can't have a peerage?
It is. You're right. It is nowhere near on the scale of Peter Mandelson. But often with these things, it takes just one slightest puff of wind to knock off a weak leader off their perch. And I think that's what we're seeing here. But also it goes to the judgment of the Prime Minister, because once again, rather than doing this immediately, if he sensed that there was either political or moral danger in putting Matthew Doyle in the House of Lords, he's had to have this dragged out of him by his MPs and by media reports. Gabriel Pogrund, who's been doggedly reporting about this for the Sunday Times for some time, warned Downing Street, or put his allegations to him before Lord Doyle was actually sworn in as a member of the House of Lords. And Downing Street basically rebuffed Gabriel Pogrund's story and carried on with it regardless.
Yeah. So this is about sort of a
situation where he's there.
Yeah, it's a pattern of behaviour. It's this idea, isn't it? And we know a lot of female Labour MPs particularly speaking up about this, that this is sort of a pattern of behaviour of the boys in number 10 basically not taking this stuff seriously enough and just thinking, it doesn't really matter that someone has campaigned for someone who's charged with such crimes, or someone has stayed mates with someone who's been convicted of such crimes. And so just not taking it seriously at the same time as talking a lot about wanting to tackle violence against women and girls. It's the hypocrisy and it's the pattern that seems to be the damaging thing.
And I think that it's equally damaging for Keir Starmer, because your viewers, my readers, will just know that if the shoe was on the other foot and this was any Tory Prime Minister, he will be first at the dispatch box crying blue murder.
Yeah.
And this is why it has been, Keir Starmer is so vulnerable to allegations of sleaze and scandal, because let's be honest, we all know, it's been well documented, he's got no real sort of driving conviction. He's not an ideological politician. He sort of blows in the wind. But the one thing he did have, and was his main sell to the country, was I am beyond reproach when it comes to standards, when it comes to rules. He was the self-styled Mr. Rules. He went to the country on July 4th, 2024, July 2024, saying, change. That is what I'm going to sell. Change. It was on the front page of his manifesto. And for most people, that was an end to the chaos, the chicanery, the scandal of the dogged age of the Tory times. And what we've seen in the past 19 months is anything but stability. It has been a roller coaster of chaos. I mean, we've been going through, in anticipation of the end of Keir Starmer's premiership, we've been writing the political obituaries preemptively. Newspapers across the land have been doing this. I'm sure Talk has been also compiling some stuff. And you actually just genuinely forget how many gaffes, and missteps and U-turns and scandals there have been in the past 18, 19
U-turns,
months.
winter fuel was very, the announcement on winter fuel was, that was within weeks. Already in August, elected in July, in August we were talking about free gear Keir, and again that raised questions about his integrity.
I totally forgot about the Taylor Swift motorcade until I went back through the archives.
Taylor Swift motorcade, yeah. But this is the thing, and again, as you say, Mr. Integrity, Mr. Rules, and it just doesn't fly. But also, again, as you said, he just doesn't seem to have any sort of. There's no sort of ballast to the man. He was talking. I was watching the clips on the news. My husband, I was just like shouting at the telly, and he was talking about change, and this is what I represent the people. And he was like, what? Give us something tangible. And there was nothing tangible. Here's what is going to be tangible, though, is when we get to see more of these files. Now, it could be many weeks. Who knows? Some of these reports looking into the decision and who knew what when about Manderson's relationship with Epstein when he was appointed as the ambassador to the US. But we've got the Met Police yesterday telling ministers, don't do what Wes Streeting did. Don't be publishing everything. We want all of this stuff. Now they're talking about going back all the way to the Blair era when Manderson was appointed, and what the hell he was doing then, and whether information was being siphoned off and had documents and confidential stuff being given to Epstein then, because of course that relationship goes back many, many years. I mean, God knows what can of worms has been opened up now.
Yeah, and I think you can probably say with confidently it's going to spell the death knell of New Labour. Many people might have thought that came back in 2010, but still central figures who were involved in those Blair Brown governments are still right at the heart of Downing Street. I wonder whether or not Morgan McSweeney, Tim Allen, who've been out the door in the past few days, just maybe anticipated being dragged into this. Both of them very close with Peter Mandelson, indeed, as are people currently serving at the cabinet table who were around in those times, either in ministerial or advisory positions. This just has the feel of one of those scandals which is just going to suck and drag everyone into it, and that is why people are saying that it is probably going to be the most damaging scandal since Profumo, because it just feels like it has that propensity to just implode the government from the inside out. And I think at the moment those files are being underpriced because it is going to be explosive.
Absolutely. And of course there's no sort of alternative narrative the government give. They can talk about, we're going to rebuild some schools. No one's paying any attention. They're only paying attention to this. And they have, the economy is still in the doldrums. And Keir Starmer doesn't have the panache, the gift of the gab that some former prime ministers have to talk them way out of these things, like Tony Blair, like David Cameron, like to a certain extent for a while, only for a while, Boris Johnson. Finally, very briefly, Jack Elson, because we're going to the top of the hour. How long do you think the Prime Minister survives? When's he going to fall on his sword?
I mean, it could be any moment. That's how much jeopardy he's in. But, I think we'd probably be measuring the Starmer premiership in months rather than years, if I'm honest. OK, Jack Elson, great to talk to you, political editor at The Sun. Thank you very much indeed. Claire Pearson, you work in Westminster. You see, it must be febrile at the moment.
It is. I mean, it's hysterical yesterday, just walking round, and a lot of Labour MPs going, yes, it's brilliant, he's survived. It's all positive. And you look at them and you just think, this is only the beginning. Trust me, also, I've been here.
If you've got 404 MPs and you're only 19 months into your term of office, and you're having to have your backbenchers and your cabinet say they support you for you to quote survive. I mean, you are not doing well.
No.
I mean, genuinely, every time he goes on telly, I think he just loses another 2,000 votes. I mean, literally, genuinely, he's just so unimpressive. I think Jack Elson was being generous, saying in months. I think it's weeks, but there we are.
It is.
We shall wait and see. PMQs coming in now. You do not want to miss that. I imagine Kemi Badenoch and the Prime Minister are just feverishly working away on that. Want to hear your thoughts on all the big stories we're talking about? Do get in touch. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning. Welcome back to the show. What a rip-roaring, lively one it is today. So much to talk about. At 3 minutes past 11, it's great to have your company, whether you're listening at on DAB Plus radio or on your smart speaker, whether you're watching on YouTube or on your connected device. Thank you so much for joining us. Loads more to come. I'm with you live until 1. If you miss anything on the show, you can go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe and you never have to miss a thing, and I'll stop nagging you to do it. Come on, people. You're married. You must understand how this works. Just do it, and then I don't have to nag you anymore. You know the score. Oh, by the way, very exciting news. Yesterday I discovered my podcast. I know I didn't know I have a podcast. It's highlights. I've just got a rolled eye from a producer, Ted, because he has to put it all together. The highlights of the show. Yes, there are highlights, since you're asking. We topped a million downloads. 1 million downloads. That's not bad, isn't it? That's not bad. Anyway, thank you very much if you're downloading the podcast or listen to the show live. But coming up in this hour, we're going to discuss more of the crimes at home and abroad. The stabbing rampage at a London school that left 2 boys, 12 and 13, seriously injured, fighting for their lives in a hospital. Witnesses claim that the 13-year-old suspect shouted Allahu Akbar, but the police aren't sure whether it's a terrorist attack or not. Yeah, I'm shrugging too. Also discuss the Afghan migrant guilty of raping a 12-year-old girl just 4 months after arriving in Britain. Why are these people not locked up so they can't commit crimes? And also reports of anti-Semitic incidents in Britain have spiked since the deadly Manchester synagogue attack last year, with an average of 10 a day taking place. Absolutely extraordinary. We'll talk about all of that. We'll talk about much more. Lots more to discuss with Claire Pissell, former Conservative Government Advisor. Morning to you.
Morning.
Question I'm asking our audience today is specifically about that attack at a North London school. A 13-year-old attacker, or the alleged suspect, shouting Allahu Akbar, according to many witnesses. Kids all in a classroom at lunchtime when a kid stabs a 12-year-old boy and a 13-year-old boy, one in the neck and one in the back. I mean, absolutely horrific. Thankfully, one of the kids was able to sound the fire alarm to get people onto the scene and get the other kids out. The suspect believed to be a child at the school who'd been suspended, who had climbed over a wall to get into the school. But this is a serious worry. These spates of stabbings. We've got another kid, who was stabbed just walking along the road, and his attacker, in Birmingham, his attacker has now been sentenced. Well, behind bars. He certainly won't be out for a number of years. I had a 12-year-old boy at a local school to me. It's stabbed by allegedly 2 14-year-old boys in the school playground. This is now not uncommon. There's going to be a point when this is no longer going on the front pages. But the stabbing alongside shouting Allahu Akbar raises other concerns about not just how many radicalised people we have in this country, but radicalised kids we have in this country. I want to know your reaction to this. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate and text cost 1, standard network rate message. How concerned are you, Claire?
I'm really concerned when I feel that it's almost, it's another one. And that's an awful thing when you hear the headlines and you just think, oh, again, yes, here we go, another stabbing. I think it was Chris Phillips, one of your previous guests, made the comment about what are the parents doing in all of this?
Yeah.
Because if that was me, I would be more scared of my parents than absolutely anything else. I'd rather they handed me over to the police at that point, because my mum was frightening. She really, really was.
Parents should absolutely be frightening. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, my mother was. And she was a teacher, so she had a look about her.
But wouldn't you be, how concerned are you at various city schools, about kids carrying knives? But would you not be, I know, you know what, if you have to search your kid every single day as they leave the house,
that's your job.
You do that.
And that's your job.
You search your kid's bedroom as soon as they've left the house.
But talk to them as to why, if you find them with an implement, why on earth are they doing it?
But also, here's the thing. I mean, again, we don't know the suspect's identity. We probably never will, because they're a child. We don't get this point. They're, not being charged with a crime, and they're certainly not convicted of a crime. But, were they getting this from the parents? Was it on the internet? You should know what your 13-year-old child is seeing on the internet. But again, we've got this ongoing thing that the number of people who are Islamist extremists in this country is off the scale. Now, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be called Islamophobic. It's a load of nonsense. We are not talking about all 4 million Muslims in this country being a danger to other people. No. I'm sorry. That's just bigotry. That is not the case. I know some of you will be shouting at me. That is not the case. Okay. There are many hundreds of million Muslims living around the world, living very, very peacefully. Okay. Yeah. We have a particular problem having imported it from the Middle East, from Pakistan and other countries where we have imported is a particular form of Islamist extremism. And the trouble is, looking at the polls that have been done, even by the woke organisations like the Channel 4s and everyone, who then quickly sort of get, let's not do quite a long item on this. When they do a poll, when there's been an Islamic attack, and they do a poll and they basically go, this is years ago, let's do a poll, we'll prove just how few people have these extremist views. Turns out a huge number. Many. You are looking at a bare minimum of 10% of people in this country, according to all the polling that has been done, sharing very extremist views, thinking that, killing people who insult Muhammad or show a cartoon of Muhammad or leave the religion of Islam should be killed. Okay, you are talking about very extremist views. Minimum 10%. Probably could easily be up to 20%. Now, at that point, and this is a lot of experts who are saying this is not me, not my conjecture. I have no idea. The experts talking about this who are looking into extremism. In that case, you are looking at between 400,000, 800,000, maybe up to 1 million people in this country who have values which are totally and utterly diametrically opposed to the values of a Western liberal society like Britain.
Yeah. And
it's that simple.
It is that simple, and it's a growing problem. And I think that we've all, well, not all of us, I think the powers that be have been blind to the fact that it is increasing, and they
see no
have
evil,
to be
hear
honest.
no evil, speak no evil.
Yeah, and I've done my prevent training.
Have you?
I have.
Did it prevent you from becoming?
I think it actually makes me slightly more angry than anything else. It's an interesting thing to do. It's an interesting thing to go through, and I have to do it as part of being a school governor. It isn't enough, and there aren't enough people. It's one of these things. Government puts something together and says this is going to be the solution to a problem.
It clearly isn't. Just look at the stats.
Just not.
But also, again, people keep talking about, well, we've got the threat of the far right. Sorry, if you look at the number of attacks and the number of people killed in attacks, the problem is Islamism. By all means, tackle the people on the far right or horrible, nasty, racist pigs. Absolutely. But by and large, they're not the people who are causing the mass deaths. Yeah. Sorry, so can we focus where the real problem is as our main, not only our only, but our main force? But this is the thing, it's not been tackled. And we know the Axel Rudakabana, okay, he was about sort of, there were numerous different ideologies, but he had an Al-Qaeda handbook and he had rice in. But no, definitely not a terrorist. Really? Because I think that pretty much says to me he was a terrorist. Yeah, but he had a confused ideological view, and he's definitely mental, but he's also a terrorist. Yeah, and you can be all of those things. You don't just have to fit into one particular box, and they're so scared of saying that somebody is potentially a terrorist, but also an Islamist or whatever else, because they don't want to. But we need to know people's views. If you think that someone can't leave your religion, if you think that someone can't marry out of your religion, if you think that people should be live in fear for their lives for the rest of their lives because they showed a picture of Prophet Muhammad, or burnt a Quran, you're an extremist. And I'm sorry, you're an extremist. End of, full stop. And I have worries about you and your family. Now, that doesn't make me Islamophobic. That makes me extremistophobic. Yeah. I have a problem with Islamism, extremist Islamic ideology, which teaches that. And far too many of the mosques in this country, far too many of the sites on the internet are teaching this form of ideological indoctrination. And far too many, particularly young Muslims in this country, are believing it. And it's being normalised. And it's not being called out. And as we saw with the Maccabi Tel Aviv, the police are just basically going, oh, well, please, what do you want us to do? Should we ban the Jews? Should we ban the Jews from coming to Birmingham so that you don't go around getting your crowbars and your axes and your knives and going around killing them, which is basically what the Muslim community leaders had threatened would happen. Yeah. So, and actually even on the night when they'd been banned, the police logs themselves say last November there were groups of up to 100 Muslim men, Asian men, wandering around with weapons, basically looking for Jews. Okay, I'm sorry, the politicians, the local councils, the national politicians, the police, the authorities have been bending over backwards to do everything. Again, the hate marches across London every 2 weeks, which means that we don't have enough bobbies on the beat because our police are being used up doing that kind of policing. Not just on no days, they're not available on other days because they're on their rest days then. You know, they don't work a 7-day week, you know, of course they don't. They're not tackling these things. They're not tackling the rise in anti-Semitism because it's all a bit awkward because we might have to admit that we've imported a problem. Yes. And we've encouraged a problem. And when you have a 13-year-old child allegedly shouting Allahu Akbar while stabbing 2 other kids in school, if that isn't your wake-up call, something is going horribly wrong and we need to deal with it. The grooming gangs weren't enough of a wake-up call for you. I don't know what is.
And people are still not believing the victims of the grooming gangs either, and they're trying to make out
slags.
Exactly, and they're you know, white girls that they were rubbish, and it's an appalling state of circumstances that we've got in that you cannot now call it out for what it is.
No, because why? You're going to be called far right. You're going to be called far right. I mean, again, I you know what? Racist, bigot, Islamophobe, far right, all that stuff. Do you know what? I just don't care anymore. Those words used to have terrible meaning. I used to threaten to see people. I don't care. I literally don't care. And I think there are millions of people now who don't care. We're going to speak it out for what it is. Oh, yeah, transphobic. That's also what I am. Another big crime we're talking about today. Mass school shooter in Canada killed 9 people, 9 students and teachers, we believe as well, then killed themselves because it's a gun person apparently, injured another 25. So this was at school, but also 2 people dead at home. It would appear very typical school shooting. Yeah, kills parents, kills teachers and students in school, then kills self. Initially described as a female in a dress. Yeah, now, as soon as I saw that this morning, unlike everybody working at the BBC, paid for by you and me, and like everyone working at Sky News and ITV and all the national news and everyone reporting this, I heard a female in a dress has committed a mass shooting in Canada, right, in a small town. And I immediately thought, I don't think the stats suggest that females do that at all. I'm wondering why they mentioned the dress bit. And I looked it up. There have never been any mass shootings ever by a woman in Canada. There have never been any mass shootings by a woman or attacks by a woman in the UK. There have been a tiny number, as in, given how many huge numbers of stabbings and shootings there are, mass shootings in America, a handful in America. So it's like 4 or 5% max, okay? And nearly always with another male perpetrator with them, okay? So this is a lone perpetrator's woman. I don't think that rings true. And what a surprise, despite Radio 4 telling people today, oh, you know, you can't trust social media, you need to get your reliable reporting on your mainstream media. What a surprise. It was a boy. It was a trans-identified boy. Yes, because it's a male. Because that's what it's a male crime, not a female crime. Yep. Now, but they're still reporting this as like a female crime. And now they're saying, I did check with our newsreader with what she was saying in our news, you know, and it was just that they've not confirmed the gender. Again, it used to be sex. It used to be clear because your gender is something apparently you can identify as you're either male or female. These are lies. But this is the thing. When we have lies about perpetrators of extremist violence from extremist ideologies, we have lies about whether or not someone is male or female. If you're willing to lie, the police and the reporters are willing to lie about whether or not it's a man or a woman or a teenage boy or a teenage girl who has committed mass murder of innocent people. What else are you lying about? Why are you lying about that? Because if the victim had been trans, oh my God, Brianna Shea, remember, his mother, you know, still referring to this girl, you didn't have a girl, you had a boy, and I'm so sorry. It's absolutely awful that your son was killed, but he was a boy, not a girl, and he wasn't targeted because he was trans. They don't stop going on about that. This was a trans-identified male who killed people. Say it like it is.
When do we get so scared of facts? If you and I said something that was outwardly untrue, we'd be pulled up for it,
and I would expect to be, absolutely.
And it's the same, you know, in the political sphere. That I know that you know, they're always a little bit good with the hiding of truth, but you have to be held to account. So why do we allow reports like this and we all just go, oh yes, okay, that's fine?
But lots of the newspapers, I mean, even the papers you would expect to do better on it, including, you know, the paper I write for as well, the Sun, Telegraph, the Mail, things like. I'm honestly, I'm constantly messaging people. Go, why are you reporting like this? And they will report a case as if it is, it's like Jill Smith. It's like he's John. Just look at him. He's John.
Exactly.
But there is this thing in newspaper. There is actually a requirement by Ofcom, the broadcasters. Frankly, you can do one. Seriously, you can do one. I don't care. Come for me.
What are they going to do?
I'll pay the fine. I will crowdfund the fine. I don't care. I will not be forced to lie about facts. I won't be forced to do it. And you've got IPSO for the newspapers requiring them to use people's preferred pronouns, right? Even if they are accused of a crime, or even if they're a convicted rapist or killer. Or paedophile. Because we have to worry about misgendering a mass murderer. This is sick. This is absolutely sick. Newspaper editors and people who run broadcast stations need to stop playing along with the madness. You should be about facts and only facts.
Yeah, and that's it. And when did we get into this grammatically incorrect way of announcing people as well?
I refuse to be required to use incorrect grammar. Refuse.
It really sort of sticks. I did English at school. I've got an A-level. I love looking at language. I know, that's about it. That's all I've got. And we're now expected to use it incorrectly just because it doesn't hurt someone's feelings.
You know what hurts people's feelings? Being shot. Being shot to death. That funnily that. Right, let's go on to let's just go on to truth, where you always get truth. Number 10. We talked the political editor of the Sun, Jack Olson, a few moments ago about this, but we've got this investigation into Peter Manderson's links with Epstein, going all the way back to the Blair era. Tony Blair expected to have to give evidence. Look, he was a minister. Among the many times he resigned, twice was when he worked for Tony Blair when he was Prime Minister. Big concerns now about, was he leaking just during the Brown era? Was he leaking stuff later on to Epstein? What else was he up to? Police are already investigating that. Gordon Brown, the former Prime Minister, has been very clear. Said, what he's done was criminal. Of course, we cannot verify that these documents were genuine, but they certainly appeared to be. And if they are, we are looking at misconduct in public office charges. That carries a life sentence.
Yeah, it is really serious.
Same issue for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, because similarly, documents when he was a UK trade envoy, an official role for the government. Again, misconduct in public office. Very, very, very serious crime if it is proven. We've also got this issue of Keir Starmer's former spin doctor, Matthew Doyle, now Lord Doyle. He's been suspended. He's already lost the Labour whip over his links to a sex offender. Explain a bit about the story. And you and I kind of view that this is getting a little bit witch hunty.
It is a little bit. So Matthew Doyle, who is a sort of old hand around the Westminster world.
He's been around for years.
He has been around for years. He's held many jobs. I've come across him and he's always been sort of perfectly pleasant towards me. I've had no reason to disbelieve any of the things that he's said. I don't agree with him, but that's beside the point. Yeah. He was a friend of a gentleman up in Scotland who has been convicted of having indecent images on his computer. So basically he's a paedophile. Matthew Doyle was asked about his friendship. What was his relationship with this individual? Did he go out helping campaign when he was an independent candidate? To which the answer was yes. But
he put photos up of him campaigning.
He did.
This was when he was charged but not convicted.
Charged but not convicted. As soon as he's convicted, Matthew Doyle has cut off all ties. I think that we need to be very, very careful holding somebody responsible for the actions of someone else. I don't agree that Matthew Doyle should have been given a peerage, but that's a whole different conversation.
And there's an argument about that actually the Sunday Times was reporting in December that so after it had been announced that he was going to be made a peer, because all these people get a peerage.
Yeah, they do.
And then the Sunday Times reported that he'd been campaigning for this guy as an independent when he was already charged with these crimes, and was not standing for the Labour because he'd been charged with these crimes.
Precisely.
And basically there was plenty of time for them to basically withheld the peerage.
Yeah, and that's the problem. I think the peerage announcement was made on the 10th of December. The information came out about the 27th of December, and the formal announcement of the confirmed peerage was January the 8th. Yeah. So there was time in between. It's now been suspended as of February the 10th.
But I think a lot of people go, I don't know this guy. Yeah. He hasn't committed a crime. He wasn't defending this guy who was already convicted. It's not the same as Mandelson and Epstein. Epstein had already been convicted and pleaded guilty to a crime. But the key thing, and also anyone who's hung around with Epstein knew that he was surrounded by teenage girls. I just don't believe for a moment that anybody who considered him his best pal wasn't seeing everything. And the really revolting little text messages and emails they've been sending each other. Sorry, it's quite obvious. obvious. He was fully aware of his of Jeffrey Epstein's predilections. Feel free to sue me, Mandy. I don't care. It's just people are disgusting. But this all comes back to Keir Starmer's judgment, isn't it? And this idea that there's just this view over Keir Starmer, all his mates, all the boys at Number 10, this boys' club where they talk the talk about violence against women and girls, and they talk about everything, but actually when it comes to a lot of things, at the actual reality of it, they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. And you can take that back to the grooming gangs and failure to act there and being dragged kicking and screaming to a public inquiry there. Still ain't got that up and running, by the way. And it goes to, not really having an issue with the fact that Mandelson was appointed US ambassador despite it being common knowledge that he was big mates with Epstein and after his conviction as well. Just not having an issue with that and not having an issue with Matthew Doyle campaigning for someone who'd been accused of paedophilia. I mean, I'm sorry, but there is a pattern here, but are we in danger of kind of stretching it a little bit too far?
I think in the case of Matthew Doyle that yes, I think it does sit at the heart of what's wrong with the government. The judgment of the Prime Minister is so appalling, but also the fact that he cannot make a decision and stick with it. So, the Labour MPs were cock-a-hoots yesterday in the Commons going around going, oh, isn't it brilliant? We've done so many good things. And you think, well, what?
I asked Carl Turner, Labour MP, who was on to defend the Prime Minister, and he was literally like, what? Give me something.
And you come up with breakfast clubs. Free breakfast clubs. Which aren't free.
They're not free, they're paid for by us.
That's it. And you just think in 2 years, what is your political philosophy, Keir Starmer? Because I don't think you've got one.
We all know he's toast. Everyone knows he's toast apart from Keir Starmer. I mean, the PMQs in about half an hour's time is going to be quite interesting there. I mean, it's always talking about, it was some sort of this class war of dealing with the class issue. Oh, mate, I mean...
Stop.
Yeah, no one... You're son of a tool maker. I mean, your dad owned the factory, mate. Your dad owned the factory. Please stop the pretence.
And he was privately educated. So
he's no more working class than I am. I mean, give me a break. I mean, And also went to grammar school. They're opposed to grammar school, and it became a private school.
Nothing wrong with the grammar school.
There's one thing I loathe in this world. More than, paedophiles, rapists. I mean, let's go the obvious, okay? In terms of, it's lefties...
Yes.
Who went to grammar schools or private schools, who are opposed to grammar schools.
I know.
Often, by the way, they send their kid to selective, academic selective grammar schools. It's all right for them. But the people who want to basically stop other kids, particularly from working class homes, from getting that sort of academic education that could help them in their lives, certainly did for my parents, did for so many people like the Andrew Neils and all these amazing people who've done so well because they had that access. I despise those people, I really do. Just one final thing I want to talk about in relation to all this stuff with Mandelson and Trump and everything, and Epstein. Sorry, is a former police chief in Florida. In these Epstein files, that said he received a call from Donald Trump back in 2006 in which the now president told him everyone knows about Jeffrey Epstein's behaviour. This is an FBI document. It's been confirmed by who the police chief was, and that yes, this phone call was made. They're saying absolutely that Donald Trump called him after the department launched an investigation into Epstein at that time, which then eventually led to these much pleaded down charges, saying thank goodness you're stopping him. Everyone has known he's been doing this. This was Michael Reiter, Palm Beach police chief at the time. He told the Miami Herald that he had received that call from Trump. Donald Trump, of course, when asked by reporters in 2019, Epstein was arrested by federal agents, and Donald Trump was asked, of course he was president then, if he had any suspicions about the financier. There'd been loads of pictures of them together in New York over the years. Trump said, no, I had no idea. I haven't spoken to him in many, many years. Donald Trump lies, shocker.
And that's kind of where I am with this. I think whatever Donald Trump says at the time, that the opposite is probably true. I didn't know about it. Well, yeah,
I think it's a bit unlikely that police chief is making that call up.
I would say that the police chief is probably a more trustworthy individual than the President of the United States.
Good on Donald Trump for putting the call in. Everyone's known.
Well, actually, that would have been a really good thing if he sort of said, yeah, I did, and I had my concerns and I raised them, but he's doubled down and said, I've never met him, I've never been there.
Yeah, there's no doubt. No, he has said he broke off friendship for many, many years ago. Probably realised he was too dangerous and too dodgy for him, even for him. Anyway, love to hear your thoughts on all all the big stories. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We're going to get to your calls up next. Then we are going to be talking more about that African migrant who has abducted, raped and took a video of a 12-year-old girl. And he's been sentenced, but he's been found guilty. But is he ever actually going to be thrown out of this country? Yeah, pull the other one. We'll talk about that and plenty more besides. And of course, PMQ's coming up in about half an hour's time as well. This is Talk.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. 11:30 is the time. Of course, we've been yapping away. I've been yapping away, let's be honest. And we're running a little bit late. Going to get straight to your calls right now. 0344 499 1000. Arthur is in Bolton. Arthur, you want to talk about this stabbing at the school in North London, don't you?
Yes, I do. Julia, good morning. How nice to speak to you.
And you.
What I'd like to actually say is, in my opinion, I think it could be cured in 2 months. Simply by, even if it was my brother had stabbed and murdered somebody without a shadow of a doubt, I'd string him up myself. And if it was anybody caught with a knife, it's 10 years, not like 6 months, 10 years in jail.
Yeah.
You tell me how many people would walk around with a knife.
The risk. Well, of course, it would depend on their chances of actually getting stopped and searched and getting caught. Currently, I believe the law is if you're found with a knife, you are supposed to go to prison. It's certainly a second offence, but I think only like a small fraction of those who were caught, even on a second offence, actually go to prison. Cool. So what? Why would they care?
I know.
It's terrifying. But the only thing is, also, as we discovered after the Axel Rudiger Bar affair, apparently the solution is we need to have rounded knives.
But Randy, I'll tell you what, when he said it was an actor that said that, didn't he get an OBE for it?
Probably. I mean, don't. It's genuinely painful. It is.
Well, I'll tell you what, my first job on leaving school was a slaughterhouse.
Oh, wow.
Right, I worked in a slaughterhouse in Wigan and then I moved to one in Bolton. But what I'm trying to get at, my wife said, have you seen this? Idris Elba. He's got something and his idea was round the knives off. And I said to my missus, If I got a round knife where there's no actual point, I bet you I could stick it in his ribs.
Oh, yeah. Try not to do that, I would suggest. But yeah, I know that's the thing. I mean, there's apparently you're less likely to see injuries. I think the main issue we need to deal with: why are kids carrying knives, and why do they want to use knives? We need to tackle that issue, exactly, rather than let's make it harder to buy a knife online or round them at the end. I mean, but again, also, what are your motives? Why are you shouting Allahu Akbar as it's alleged it was done? Let's also thank you for that. Let's go to Stephen in Wolverhampton. Hi, Stephen. What do you want to say?
Good morning, Julia.
Morning.
Nice to speak to you, and you've been a ray of hope for the last 4 years listening to you.
Oh,
wonderful
bless you.
show.
Bless you. Thank you.
I reckon every school should own a metal detector.
Yeah.
And that would somewhat solve some of the problem. Obviously, the fact that they've got a knife in the first place is another problem.
But not letting them in the school. I'd like to say, if I had like a 10-year-old, I'm thinking, what secondary school am I going to send them to? And I went to the school and they have metal detectors. I would instantly go, this is not a school I want to send my kid to. They've obviously got a knife problem.
Absolutely, but it would certainly alleviate one of the problems, and they could also do the same on public transport.
Well, we're basically what we go through metal detectors like we do at the airport for getting on the train.
Yeah. Yeah,
but you can't do that on buses. You can't have one at every bus stop. And I mean, the queues are bad enough getting onto the train in the morning as it is.
Yes, but that would be somewhat a deterrent for anybody who's potentially going to carry a knife. I think that's exactly the problem we've got, is we're always tackling at the wrong end of the problem. That's the thing. It's like, we're going to stop IRA bombs by not having waste bins in train stations. Do you remember that? That doesn't solve the actual problem. It's the fact that there are people out there who carry weapons and who want to do this. They just, when you make it hard to get guns, you know what terrorists do? They just ram people with guns. With cars and lorries. They will always find a way. They always will. I don't think that's the solution. I'm going to disagree with you on that, Steve. I'm going to have to go to a quick break again, and then we're going to be talking about just the latest madness of again the horror of those crimes that never happen but keep happening. Yet another Afghan Channel migrant being convicted of raping a British schoolgirl. We'll talk about that with Tony Smith, the former head of the UK Border Force. Up next, this is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good morning. Welcome back to the show. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk, the home of common sense. Right now, let's talk more about yet another one of those crimes that just never ever happens. They're just being made up by people who are bigots and far right, and it never ever happened at all. But yeah, another Channel migrant, yet another Afghan, has been convicted of the crime of abduction and rape of a girl of the age of just 12. He arrived just 4 months before the attack took place. He's been found guilty, but he could face, we're told, instant deportation after he serves his prison sentence. But do you believe he'll ever be deported? Well, let's talk about this with Tony Smith. He's former head of the UK Border Force. Very good morning to you.
Morning, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. Again, I mean, I just lost track. I think there's roughly one a week of these stories now. These stories about this very small number of desperate people who come to this country, desperately trying to find a safe place after fleeing war and exploitation and people trafficking and good knows what. And they come here and then apparently commit these horrific crimes. This isn't an allegedly, this is a conviction.
Yeah, sickening, Julia. I'm sickened. You are. People listening to this will be sickened that this, not just this case, but this keeps on happening.
Yeah.
Now, I've got a 3-point plan here for you, Julia. It's all based around detain and deport. We're hearing detain and deport from Reform. They've said that from the start.
Yeah.
We're now hearing it from the Conservatives, although they haven't always said that.
No.
But that, for me, there's 3 fundamental planks to that. We've got to build detention centres now. We need detention centres capable of holding 60,000 people a year. That's 5,000 people a month, Julia.
Yep.
At the moment, our estate is only 2,300 beds and they're all full. That's one of the reasons why people get bail in the first place, nowhere to put them.
Yep.
The second point is we've got to change the legal framework. We have to leave the ECHR. We have to renounce the Hardy Al Singh judgment to give the Border Force and Immigration Enforcement powers to hold people indefinitely.
What was that judgment? That was just basically,
that judgment was you can only hold people if there is a realistic chance of removal.
And again, so we can't hold people because we can't remove them. That's the irony.
That's the irony. So we need to change that law so that we say that and even look at habeas corpus, which is a long-term principle. We can't detain people without trial indefinitely. But the get-out-of-jail card for you is you can always leave this country. Yeah. That is your get-out-of-jail card. We will always let you go if we're satisfied you're admissible to the country you want to go to. Yeah. So you're not detaining people indefinitely.
It's your choice to remain in detention. And of course, that detention needs not be perhaps the most salubrious detention facilities. But, of course, we had all these detention centres closed down when there was these massive backlogs. It's quite a few years ago. And because this idea that this was just totally it was an uncivilized way of keeping people. You can't keep these people in these detention centres. They're not, they're not holiday camps for very long periods. But that would be kind of part of the point, wouldn't it? That they wouldn't be very pleasant.
Well, they would not be allowed into the communities. You would not see these protests in Crowborough and whatever. Those would be secure. People would not be allowed to leave, Julia, unless they left the country. And my final point would be a removal strategy. We're talking about removing people from the country. Now, we've got to resurrect Rwanda or something similar to that.
Yeah.
We need an alternative, potentially Ascension Island. Some think tanks are talking about Ascension Island or somewhere, but we need some third place where we can send people to if we cannot send them back to their own country.
Well, we can guarantee it's a British territory. We can guarantee that it's safe, but it may not be somewhere where people want to go to. I mean, again, I think when you talk about that stuff, within 2 weeks, those boats would stop. I mean, so we'd still be dealing with the backlog, but again, fine, then we'll deal with the backlog. But we won't be having new people coming in 4 months later raping 12-year-olds.
Exactly. These are the things that will stop the boats. Now, other things that they're doing, and to be fair to Shabana Mahmood, she is trying her best. She's trying things within the framework of the government policy.
You say that.
This government will
never. She
never,
gets too much
Julia,
credit.
This is draconian stuff I'm talking about here.
No, it's not. You see, this is it. This is the thing. People go, oh, we can't do any of that. No, we had an invading army of young men, far too many of whom are committing horrific crimes against our girls and our women, and committing many other inquisitive crimes as well. These are perfectly reasonable, would have been considered completely normal responses in any normal country in a normal time.
And we need to look at removals in terms of enforcement of removals. We need to bring in people from ICE, from the US. They're 100%. Very used to moving people around by air. Criminals are regularly transported within the US and overseas by air, by properly enforced airplanes with properly trained staff. We don't do enough of that, Julia. We rely on charter flights.
Yeah.
We're not really fully equipped. I'd like to see the military involved in this. I'd like to see aircraft developed capable of ensuring empowering people can be removed securely and safely from this country. And we've really got to get tough with countries like Syria and Afghanistan and Iran and other places that simply won't give us landing rights. That's a huge agenda that I'm talking about, Julia, but that is what it's going to take.
It is what
when
it's
governments say
necessary.
they do whatever it takes, they're not doing whatever it takes, because that's what it's going to take.
And again, this was an issue that people were saying, only people on the far right worried about it. Oh, yes, Nigel Farage says all your problems are a few blokes turning up on the beach, at Dover every week. But it's not. It's in the many, many hundreds. We have tens and tens and tens of thousands of these people. They are largely young men. And we have a spate of crime being committed, very serious, violent sexual crime being committed by these men. The rate is off the scale. This whole, these things really happen. I don't think a week goes by without something like this. And look, in this case, and again, you're looking at this guy, Ahmad Mulakil, 23-year-old Channel migrant, claiming to be from Afghanistan. Maybe he is. I don't know. There's no reason to know whether he is or he isn't. But he was convicted of abducting and raping a 12-year-old girl just 4 months after he'd arrived in the country. She's a 12-year-old girl. It's not like is she 17 or 18 or anything like that. She was a child in the park. He abducted her, attacked her in a quiet cul-de-sac. He took photographs of her. And again, this is the crime he's being convicted of. We have no idea whether there were other incidents involving him or anyone else he knew. And again, we're told all this time we need to feel sorry for these people. They are fleeing persecution. They are fleeing horrible, horrible regimes. They're fleeing war. Well, yeah, I would want to flee Afghanistan, but the trouble is they are fleeing these countries, even if they genuinely are, but they're fleeing countries which have a very different attitude towards particularly women and children than we do here. And they're coming from countries where there is normalised violence and crime, where, and they are bringing those problems with them.
They're not fleeing persecution from France, Julia. Exactly. France is a safe country. There's no reason why they can't stay in France. They don't want to stay in France because the French don't treat them very well. They want to come here because it's the land of milk and honey. That's for ever. That's the message. Yeah. But you need to adopt the sorts of policies I'm talking about, Julian. We need to be realistic about this because the migrants don't believe us. The smugglers don't believe us. They're massing over in France, and it's the weather that's still our best deterrent, I'm afraid.
Oh, so exactly. Whenever we see those figures go down, it's always the weather, whether it's the Tories or Labour in charge. And that's the thing. I don't know why they don't understand. Why are they all coming all the way to France and then coming here? Oh, because they've got family members here. I mean, I've got family members in New York. Doesn't give me a right to go and live in New York. It's absolutely bizarre. Just to ask you one other story. 16 Channel migrants are mounting a High Court challenge, gets underway at 2 o'clock today, to block their return to France under the government's one-in, one-out deal. I mean, I'm just amazed. I mean, we're talking about 305 migrants have been returned to France so far under the scheme, and 367 have been sent from France to the UK. So it's not working out that well for us anyway. But this group of 16 Channel migrants are seeking to scupper the scheme by overturning legal changes that made it easier to return Channel migrants to France. And they're claiming basically under modern slavery rules that they can't be removed.
Yeah. So this goes to my point too about the legal framework we've got, Julia. You can't even send people back to France, a safe third country that's signatory to all these conventions. They're not facing persecution in France. This should not be an issue for our courts. This is a safe country. We should be the trouble with France is they won't take people back. Yeah. We shouldn't have to convince our own courts about this. But the French political scene, as you know, is chaotic at the moment. So doing a deal with them,
we think ours is bad.
I've lost faith in that. But if you stick to the plan that I suggested, if you come by small boat from France, you will be detained. We will have somewhere to lock you up. There's no legal recourse to get you out of jail unless you make a voluntary departure. And we're going to triage your removal either back to the country you are from originally or to some safe third place like Rwanda or Ascension Island. And I'd like to see that in place because I think that's the only thing that's going to appease a lot of our communities now, Julia.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, I fear this is going to carry on happening.
Have either the Tories or Reform hit you up to give you a job if they get in next time round?
I've spoken to both of them. I think they're the trouble with politics, Julia, is they're very into slogan announcements to hit you guys, to persuade people to vote for them. There's a lot of hard work needs to be done behind the scenes. I'm very happy to add my support to whichever political party agrees with my three-point plan, because there's a lot of work from me, but there are really good border security experts around that want to help with this. Yeah. But I'm not sure they've quite got their act together yet. And hopefully they will do by the time we get an election. But that, in my view, I love my country too, like you. I worked in border security for 40 years. years, and I'm sick to death of people coming in undocumented and perpetrating crime and the effect it's having on our communities.
Absolutely.
And our first duty of government is to protect our people, Julia, and we're not doing that. And I'd love to support any government that is capable and is willing to do that.
Amen to all of that. Tony Smith, former head of the UK Border Force, thank you as always for coming on. Claire Pearsall, UX Home Office, you know, as an advisor, the Conservatives. I mean, everyone should be talking to him and going, seriously, I mean, you know what he's talking about. It's a simple plan. We know it will work. It will work within 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I do disagree with him on the Ascension Islands, but I don't disagree with him on anything else. And I think that we do need to be able to have a deterrence of saying you will either go back to whence you came or you'll go to another third country. Those
but you
are
ain't our
choices.
problem. And you definitely aren't walking our streets. You're not raping our 12-year-olds or our 14-year-olds. Sorry. Shall we draw a line there?
Yes.
Sorry for being far right. I'd rather people didn't break into my country and rape 12-year-old girls. Sorry for being a bigot. Apologies, you know, take me away in handcuffs, take me off air. I mean, but I'm pretty sure that isn't a far-right view. I'm pretty sure that's a pretty normal bloody view from normal people. It's only the weirdos we've had in charge all these years, your lot and this current lot, who have a problem with that. Anyway, it's one of those mornings, people. I'll tell you something else I'm absolutely bleeding furious about, and that's that spike in anti-Semitism that we've seen, in particular in the wake of the murders at the Heaton Park synagogue in Manchester. We're going to be talking about that rise in anti-Semitism up next. Stay tuned. This is Talk.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 11:50 is the time. Coming up in just 10 minutes' time, we're going to get PMQs. Goodness me, Keir Starmer's been on the ropes this week. Will he be sort of riding high? Or will Kemi Badenoch be able to, well, plunge the knife in even further? Yeah, a lot of plunging of knives going on the show today. Right now, let's talk about something just incredibly worrying, and it's been going on and rising for many, many years, but extraordinarily, is this something that gets worse at the worst possible times. Reports of anti-Semitic incidents in the UK spiked after the deadly Manchester synagogue attack last year. We are looking at 3,700 anti-Jewish hate incidents recorded last year. It was up from the year before, but only below the peak in 2023, which was, of course, the year that we saw the October 7th attack. But why are we seeing more anti-Semitic attacks when Jews are the victims of horrific attacks, including murder? Let's talk to Dr. David Rich. He's Director of Policy at the Community Security Trust. Now, that's the charity that protects British Jews from terrorism and anti-Semitism. Good morning to you, David.
Good morning.
Thank you very much, David, for joining us. Well, I don't think it's a surprise to anyone, these figures. I mean, it works out as, on average, 10 anti-Semitic incidents a day. The big concern, though, is that at the point when Jews are the victims of horrific crimes like the October the 7th massacre, like the murders at the Heaton Park synagogue in Manchester, that is when we see a spike in more attacks on Jews and hatred of Jews. What is going on?
It's unfathomable, really. Last year, we saw the first fatal terrorist attack against the Jewish community in this country that anyone can remember. 2 Jewish people tragically lost their lives in synagogue on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish year. And while the vast majority of the country responded to this with utter shock and horror, and there was genuinely an outpouring of sympathy and support for the Jewish community, a small minority of people are so seemingly entrenched in their hatred and their prejudice that they saw Jewish people killed in synagogue and they were excited by it, or they wanted to see more of it and they wanted to celebrate it.
Well, we saw it on the streets. We saw people organising marches that very day, the next day, dancing, singing, celebrating in train stations, on the streets of this country, seemingly shamelessly.
It's a very similar thing to what we saw after October 7th, as you say. We saw a similar, smaller spike after the terrible shooting on Bondi Beach at a Hanukkah party in December. And I think this is a sign to us of just how deeply entrenched this hatred is and how much effort we are going to have to put in as a country to deal with this, because this is not what the vast majority of people in this country want. It's not what Britain is about. But we need really far-reaching and effective measures to tackle the hateful ideologies and the extremism that drive this anti-Semitism.
Well, exactly. Look, we know from the polling that the majority of people in this country are not anti-Semitic and are horrified by this, but we also know there's a growing minority, particularly among young people who live a lot of their lives online, and particularly also among certain communities, let's name who they are, Muslim communities, who have been entrenched in coming from Pakistan or coming from the Middle East, where anti-Semitism is completely the norm. It is absolutely the norm in societies there. I mean, again, everyone's got to stop pretending that it isn't. We've imported a lot of this problem, and it's a big issue, particularly on the left. It's part of this sort of this pyramid of who's a victim and who's an oppressor. And it is growing. And let's be honest, we've had a lot of politicians, including Keir Starmer. They talk the talk, they say all the right things, but are they doing enough to stop it?
We get a lot of support from this government and the previous government for security in the Jewish community. There's millions of pounds spent by government on security guards at Jewish schools and synagogues. It's really welcome and important, but it's only tackling the symptom. It's not tackling the ideology and the extremism. So much of this spreads on social media. I think you're right to look at young people and that online space as where so many of these conspiracy theories and stereotypes circulate. A lot of it is driven by the kind of hatreds and emotions in the way some people respond to what's happening in the Middle East. And then the impact of that is ordinary Jewish people going about their lives, getting abuse shouted at them on the street by random strangers just because they're Jewish. And it's affecting daily life in this country.
And that's the difference, isn't it? Because a lot of it, people will say, no, this is about Israel, this is anti-Zionism, that's a perfectly legitimate political view to hold. It's not anti-Jew. And, you know, whether it's a demonstration outside a synagogue or pro-Palestinian marches, supposedly for Gaza, that's what they claim. And yet, we don't see any other group in society, any other ethnic group or nationality or religious group who are held accountable for crimes of governments or alleged crimes, people's criticism of other governments abroad. You know, we don't hold we don't hold Muslims responsible for what the Syrian regime or the Iranian regime does. We don't hold Christians responsible for what a Christian country does. And yet this is the only group of people who are held uniquely responsible for supposedly the unique crimes. They're not, or even indeed crimes of the Israeli government. And this is the thing. It is a different situation. But when we have a situation where we have hate marches on the streets, when we have people dancing in the streets, when we have politicians, basically pushing, basically pandering, and police officers in Birmingham, over the Maccabi Tel Aviv, pandering to Muslim community leaders and often extremists threatening violence against people because they're Jewish or because they're Israeli, it is understandable why people would think that they could get away with anti-Semitic crimes. They could get away with protests outside a Jewish restaurant in Notting Hill, or daubing paint on a Jewish business, or attacking a child on a school bus for having a blazer from a Jewish school, or going to a synagogue with a knife. They would think that was okay, wouldn't they?
Well, I think the people in the Jewish community have wanted stronger action for quite some time. And this isn't about preventing protest. It isn't about preventing normal politics. It's about tackling the extremism and the anti-Semitism within those protests. It's about tackling extremists within communities rather than whole communities. We are starting to see stronger action. We have seen a number of different kind of foreign hate preachers prevented from entering the country in recent weeks. We're starting to see more arrests for violent language on protests. But I think this needs to be sustained. It needs to be really embedded so that red lines are laid down across society. And this isn't just for government and police. It's for regulators. It's for charities. It's for schools and universities. You know, we need to make it clear across the whole of society that anti-Semitism is unacceptable, that extremism should have no place in our country. And that's the only way we're going to roll this back over time.
Yeah, and again, I think also a lot of people realising that anti-Semitism is the canary in the coal mine for a society that is going in a very, very, very bad direction. And in every country where this has been allowed to rise in the same way as it has in this country in recent years, it has led to worse problems for everybody. It is something we need to stand up against. And I'm very much of the view these days, you know what, if you're silent, you're complicit. And if you don't speak out and you don't say, you call for action, you are complicit in it. Dr. David Rich from the Community Security Trust, thank you so much for joining us. Claire Pearsall, listening to this, I mean, again, well, politicians talk a good game, but I'm sorry, I'm still fuming at the fact those blokes who drove down to London and drove around down the end of my street shouting they were going to rape the Jewish wives and daughters of men there on a megaphone, on camera. They've never been charged with a crime. That tells you all you need to know. You can get away with it in this country.
It's the shrug of the shoulders. Oh well, yeah, we'll get them next time. And
don't sort of go. Don't go make a nice speech after the event. Start arresting people.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? And that was really interesting what David said. It's tackling the symptoms. The government putting money into security around synagogues and schools, solely treating the symptoms. How about treating the root cause? How about getting those people off the street every other week?
Exactly. Why did those places need to have security guards? Did your school have security guards?
No,
my school didn't have security guards. Why? But why do those schools have security? That's all you need to know.
Exactly.
And who are the people who are a threat to them? And again, another thing that people don't like to talk. Yeah. Who are those people making those threats, daubing the paint? Who do you think they are? Do you know who they are? Yeah. Everyone knows who they are. But we'll all just pretend we don't know who they are. We've imported the problem. We're now breeding the problem, and it's a problem. And if we make a choice.
It's going to get worse.
It's going to get worse, and they're not going to deal with it because it's too awkward politically, particularly for one particular party. There's the Labour Party. That is a very big issue. So much more to talk about, lots more calls coming up. We're going to be going to PMQs straight after the news. We'll take it live. We'll hear how the Prime Minister is going to manage. Goodness knows how much prep has had to go into this. Fighting again to maintain his premiership. Well, I'd love to see the face of Wes Streeting and Angela Rayner on the backbenches, but there we are. We'll see about that. That's up next. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. It's 2 minutes past midday. Prime Minister's questions has just started. We will go live to the House of Commons as soon as Kemi Badenoch steps up to the mark. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk, the home of common sense. Joining me in the studio, Claire Pissell, former Conservative government advisor, and also Peter Carball, Talk presenter, of course, and long-time Politico. Going to be watching this very, very difficult week for the Prime Minister. Apparently he's all secure now. No one thinks that. It's maybe weeks or months as opposed to days before his premiership is over. Many are predicting, but he'll be wanting to come out fighting. But also, Kemi Badenoch, Tory leader, she's going to want to put the knife in, isn't she?
She's got an open goal today, Julia, I think, but certainly...
Big issue is if he doesn't score.
Yes, well, exactly, but stay of execution, I think, till the locals, but we'll see what happens.
That seems to be the view now. Claire, do you think he's going to lose to the local elections?
I think that's what I've thought all the way along. It did look a bit dicey on Monday, but I think it's May.
Monday morning, I was like, you know what, he could absolutely go. I mean, Ian Collins says he's gone by for it. Kemi Badenoch has just stood up. Let's go straight to the House of Commons.
And bricklayers securing their future and rebuilding this country.
We come to the Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I associate my side of the House with the Prime Minister's words on the horrific stabbing in North London yesterday, as well as the shooting in Canada? When he was Leader of the Opposition, the Prime Minister said, and I quote, "I never turn on my staff. When they make mistakes, I carry the can." What changed?
Prime Minister. Well, Mr. Speaker, I've accepted responsibility and apologised for the mistakes that I made. But let me say this, Mr. Speaker. Morgan McSweeney helped me change our party and helped me win a landslide election victory, which delivered for them the smallest Tory party in over 100 years. And what's her great achievement? To make it even smaller.
Kemi Badenoch.
The Whips have done a great job today. This is like the 37th... Oh, he said, yeah, exactly. Done a great job today getting them cheering. We all know that they've been sick for the last week. Because let's remember, Mr. Speaker, just last week, he told us that he had full confidence in his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney. On Sunday, he sacked Morgan McSweeney. Last week... he resigned. Yes. Last week, Mr. Speaker, he was defending the Cabinet Secretary. Now he is sacking him. Yes. What changed?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in January, she said she had full confidence, 100% confidence, she said, be no more defections from her party. 48 hours later, the Shadow Foreign Minister defected. 8 days after that, the former Home Secretary defected. The only question now is, who's next? She needs to wake up. Her party is dying.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is demonstrating stratospheric levels of delusion if he thinks the problem is on this side of the House. And he didn't say anything about why the Cabinet Secretary is going. We know the truth. It is because he is throwing everyone under a bus except himself. And, Mr. Speaker, the Mandelson episode was not an isolated incident. A few weeks ago, he announced a peerage for one Matthew Doyle, his former Director of Communications. Immediately after that, the Sunday Times published on the front page that Doyle campaigned for a man charged with child sex offences. Yet, despite the Prime Minister knowing this, he gave Doyle a job for life in the House of Lords anyway. Why?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Matthew Doyle did not give a full account of his actions. And on Monday, I promised my party and my country there would be change. And yesterday I removed the whip from Matthew Doyle. I'll tell you what other action we've taken, Mr. Speaker. Along with the Safeguarding Minister, I and this government have introduced the most far-reaching violence against women and girls strategy. And I'll tell you what else we've done. This government has introduced a pay rise for millions of working-class women. What did the Leader of the Opposition do? She opposed it. This government's introducing greater protection for women at work. What did the Leader of the Opposition do? She opposed it. And I'll tell you what else she opposes. This government removing the disgusting rape clause that they put in place.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister pretends not to know about Matthew Doyle. It was on the front page of the Sunday Times. He cannot explain why he gave this man a peerage, and I think they should be wondering why they're still cheering for him after that. And the Prime Minister, sometimes likes to claim, as he just did, that he cares about violence against women. The truth is, he only cares about the victims when he's trying to save his own skin. They can shake their heads. We saw it with grooming gangs. We saw it with Mandelson. And now we see it with Doyle. Isn't that what a former prosecutor would call an established pattern of behaviour?
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to take no lectures from the Tories in standards in public life. She defended Partygate for months and months and months. And even now she says it was overblown. The Shadow Foreign Secretary broke the ministerial code by bullying. Boris Johnson kept her. The Leader of the Opposition promoted her. She sits on her front bench. Her former Shadow Justice Secretary complained about not seeing enough white faces in Birmingham, and she was too weak to sack him for racism.
Nobody buys it, Mr. Speaker. Not even the Labour women, because they know he always puts the Downing Street Boys Club first. And how dare he criticise us? We weren't the ones stuffing government with hypocrites and paedophile apologists. He can't build a team, Mr. Speaker. He has no plan. He can't even run his own office, let alone the country. He is now dealing with a new scandal of appointing someone who campaigned for a man convicted of having indecent pictures of girls as young as 10. Isn't the Prime Minister ashamed that that will be his legacy?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, my legacy is changing my party and winning a general election. And I'll tell you this, I kicked my former leader out of my party. Her former leader, Liz Truss, broke the economy and has descended into bonkers conspiracy theories. I kicked her out of Parliament. She's too weak to kick her out of their party.
Mr. Speaker, he hasn't apologised for appointing Matthew Doyle because he won't take responsibility. He never does, and they know it. The Prime Minister is now telling everyone that he's never lost a fight. It's because he won't step into the ring. He's never lost a fight. He's walked away from welfare reform. He won't stand up to the unions. He won't stand up to China. He can't even stand up to Mauritius. He's had, Mr. Speaker, he's had 3 cabinet secretaries, 4 chiefs of staff, 5 director of communications in just 18 months. And now he is mired in yet another scandal. Does he ever look in the mirror and ask himself, is the real problem staring him in the face?
Mr. Speaker, I delivered a landslide victory for our government. Only 4 people have ever led the Labour Party to victory in a general election. I am one of them. And she talks about numbers. Let us remember, Mr. Speaker, 5 Prime Ministers, 7 Chancellors, 8 Home Secretaries, 8 Foreign Secretaries, 16 Housing Secretaries, all completely useless, all failed Britain, and this Prime Minister's clearing up the mess. She comes here every week desperately fighting to save her dying party. I'm fighting to change our country. Interest rates down, inflation down, waiting lists down, child poverty down, and I'll tell you another thing's down, the number of Tory MPs.
Well, that was quite a heated exchange between the Prime Minister and Kemi Badenoch, asking her 6 questions there. If those of you who are listening rather than watching, she had a rather wry smile on her face throughout that. I'm not entirely sure that Labour backbenchers, despite quite a lot of the noise and the cheering, whipped as Kemi Badenoch was pointing to do their bit to sound very supportive of the Prime Minister. I'm not sure they would have found that very convincing. Is joining me in the studio still Claire Pearsall, former Conservative Government advisor, and talk presenter Peter Caldwell. I'll come to you first, Peter. We kind of guessed, you never know for sure, we're going to guess that Kemi Badenoch would go on this issue, in particular taking the Epstein issue and all these staff he's lost, and going into this Matthew Doyle issue. Now, Matthew Doyle, not a household name, Director of Communications previously for the Prime Minister, but again, as she said, as an experienced prosecutor, was an established pattern of behaviour of basically the Prime Minister and his aides not being that bothered about hiring people who have close links with paedophiles. Who do you think won that?
Kemi Badenoch, indisputably. I think that was an absolutely masterful performance by her. I think she is someone who has now mastered PMQ. She's got an open goal with Keir Starmer, but you've got to score that goal.
Yeah.
And the point is she did. She talked about the issues that matter at the moment, about that, as she said, perhaps pattern of behaviour in regard to Epstein, Mandelson, Matthew Doyle. She talked about on-brand issues, things that people want to hear from Keir Starmer. He went all over the place. He talked about pay rises for working class women. He talked about anything.
That was the weirdest thing.
That
she was talking about
strange.
Violence against women and girls, and he said, yes, we do care about that. We are a far-reaching agenda, and you say pay rise for millions of working class women. I mean, I don't think the minimum wage thing was that just for women?
It was deeply weird. It was deeply weird. He was talking about basically anything apart from the issues at hand. He talked about defections to Reform UK, which is something that happened weeks ago.
And also no one in the real world cares.
Exactly. So what people do care about is maybe not every single detail of who Matthew Doyle is or what's in the Epstein files specifically, but they care about trust in government. They care about competence. And what Kemi Badenoch was talking about today was those issues directly. And I think anybody who sees anything that she said and anything that he said will come to the conclusion that she's in the front foot, he's in the back.
Claire, I mean, you worked the last government.
Yes.
You were a Tory advisor. I mean, I think it's about Kemi Badenoch, because the Tory party is very associated with the failures, the chaos, the sleaze, and all of that, and the lies. I don't think Kemi Badenoch personally is. And certainly the polling showing her ratings are going up, and performances like that certainly help. But I mean, there was a masterful performance. I think we can agree. Did she land any proper punches though?
I think she did, and I think she's highlighted the one real thing that we've not drawn upon at the moment, which is the problem the Prime Minister has with women. He has a real problem with women in the country, women in his own party. I've spoken to a number of MPs, Labour MPs, who have sat in tea rooms, and he's been wheeled in as part of his rehabilitation, and he's managed to talk to one of them about football. And she had said, I don't like football, I've never watched football, I've never spoken about it.
You think he can't relate to women? I mean...
Yeah, and it's a real problem, and that is now being shown out.
He talks a good game, but actually he's one of the boys.
Absolutely. He's got his boys' club around him, and I think this is what feeds into the Morgan McSweeney, Matthew Doyle, Peter Mandelson
They
problem.
didn't clock... None of them clocked. I've had a lot of Labour women talk about, Aisha Hazarika, the Labour peer, who she's on presenter on Times Radio, our sister station, and talking about this boys' club and everything. I think there is a bit of a boys' club, but I don't think that necessarily women are more bothered about crimes against girls than men are, because I think that's a bit of an insult to the vast majority of good men, especially the fathers, who would be just as horrified as we as mothers would be.
But I think it's this established pattern of behaviour, which Kemi Badenoch mentioned, that is the problem with the Labour Party, and it all sort of builds into one kind of story, and he's got his way of dealing with it, which isn't very good.
I thought what was very interesting, that final question when Kemi Badenoch, Peter, was saying, he's telling everyone, and he did this in his sort of fight back yesterday, which was, I mean, cringe.
Yeah.
Absolute cringe. That he's never lost a fight. And she said it's because he won't walk into the ring. And the funny thing is, he's lost every fight he's ever taken on because he constantly U-turns. Prime ministers who never lose a fight don't lose staff and they don't U-turn.
Well, of course. I mean, Winter Fuel Alliance, welfare, that was a fight that he wanted to win.
We haven't got enough time on the show to go through all the U-turns.
I mean, he absolutely lost the fight on welfare, for example. The Labour MP standing behind him can't think that he's speaking the truth. Maybe he convinces himself. Interestingly, Cherie Blair said in the Daily Telegraph today that towards the end, Tony Blair lost complete touch with reality.
That's why we should have 2 terms in office max, same as American presidents.
That implies he had some touch with reality in the first place. But with Keir Starmer, I mean, he is surrounded by people who tell him he's wonderful and amazing and brilliant.
Aren't all prime ministers?
Yes, but some of them have some self-knowledge. Whereas, and now he's got rid of, Cabinet Secretary, Director of Communications, Chief of Staff. He hasn't got a Praetorian guard around him, and he's believing his own publicity here. I mean, if he honestly believes that he's never walked away from a fight, I have a bridge to sell him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've sold that London Bridge out there so many times, I can't tell you. But Claire, it was interesting, Kemi Baton again in that final question saying, maybe you should look in the mirror. Is the real problem staring him in the face? And this is the thing, when you lose that many different aides, that's the issue. But she's definitely, the key theme the whole way through all of those questions was about, you're a hypocrite and you've got poor judgment.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I mean, I don't think you have to be party political, and I think that is true.
Yes.
I mean, that is, I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I think that's what the general public will look at, and they'll say he can't stick to any decision. We don't know what he believes in. And when I talk to people who are not in politics, they just go, but he doesn't sound very convincing. Whatever it is he's saying, I don't believe it. He could be saying good morning and I'll think, no, it's the afternoon.
Let me be very clear. When he says that...
Yes, stop saying
I was saying earlier on the show, I genuinely was watching my husband with the news highlights, and he sort of comes and goes, oh, she's got the news on again. And he was just so bad, and he was talking about all the achievements, and apparently he was saying this, in this meeting with the MPs on Monday night as well in Parliament, when he was sort of, I mean, everyone was cheering and banging the desk and everything. But like, what achievements? And even when you get people on social media and they'll list all the achievements, a lot of them are just, we're passing a law. Like, what have you actually done? Yeah. People know whether their streets feel safer. People know whether they've got more money in their pockets. People know whether their kids, when they grow up, can afford to buy a home or not, whether they're building more homes. The stats are not in his favour when anything on the economy, unemployment, like, people know when they see businesses close on our high streets, when they can't afford to go to the pub and the publican who has to close down the pub. They see this stuff. There's this. They know whether there are a load of illegal migrants in there. You can have whatever stats you want. People know when there are a whole load of people around them who they don't believe to be in the country legally.
And it's absolutely our viewers and listeners. It's absolutely people in the street. But there are people in the cabinet. Wes Streeting said there is no growth strategy. Yeah. That was the number one thing that they kept saying. He on the manifesto was Keir Starmer in the shirt sleeve with change, steely focus. Growth. We're going to get growth. They have got 0.1% growth at the moment.
Well, let's give them a little round of applause for that. Hey, listen, don't laugh. That may be as good as it gets, Peter.
His health secretary said there's no growth strategy. Similar to that, the Peter Mandelson agreed with him. We've seen those WhatsApps. His own health secretary doesn't believe there's any growth strategy.
But we knew he felt that. Now that's the thing. I mean, it's difficult to see because we're not in the Commons right now. Who's on the benches, who's standing by. You've got people like your Rachel Reeves. They will absolutely be there because their job is hanging by a string with this man as well. The only reason he's ever kept Rachel Reeves is as a human shield. There's no question at all. But how long do you think he does survive? Because there was a point on Monday where actually I was going to actually believe Ian Collins, and he's gone by 4 o'clock, he says every single day. But on Monday it looked really, really questionable. He would last more than a few days. I thought, end of the week, as I've said to my team, it's perfectly possible. Now we're looking at until the very least, the Gorton by-election, Gorton and Denton by-election on the 26th of Feb. But, that's 2 weeks away.
I think they'll lose that, and I think that it is it'll be bad for Keir Starmer, but not terminal. The point is, I think it's the locals. They want him to soak up...
And the Scottish and Welsh elections. They don't like you calling them locals.
Right, well, the locals in England,
yes,
and then the Scottish Parliament and the Welsh Assembly. What he would soak up that loss. Also, by that stage, Angela Rayner probably has her HMRC inquiry out of the way, West Reading has a little bit of distance from Peter Mandelson, and others have a little bit more time to build up their
Andy
teams.
Burnham might have a seat by then.
You never know.
Do you think the Prime Minister is in a position to block Andy Burnham now from getting
not a second time?
No.
I think it would be. I think he's too weak to sack his health secretary. You've got his health secretary who is clearly on manoeuvres against him. He is doing things that the cabinet secretary has said, don't do this, guys.
Yeah.
Don't put your WhatsApps in the public domain. The police say don't do it anymore. Health secretary's done it anyway. And the Prime Minister can't sack him.
Didn't the
He
Met
is
say
weak.
that after he'd already put them out,
that was,
though?
but nonetheless, he hasn't sacked his health secretary. That is how weak he is at the moment. He is wounded, and I think after the locals he goes.
Do you know what? I just want a T-shirt made up with stratospheric levels of delusion on it, because I think that was one of her best phrases yet.
Yeah, it was very good.
I'm enjoying her new personality.
It is interesting how often when you ask the polls of people, what they think of a leader, and actually, it's like, so you're trusting them economically, and would they make a good leader? Often decides who wins an election. The whole point is that his whole shtick was, and we were discussing this a bit earlier, weren't we, with Jack Elson from The Sun, that his whole shtick is, chaos, sleaze, kids in the room. No, I'm grown up. I'm boring. I'm dull. But I'm a stickler for rules. I'm Mr. Honesty, Mr. Integrity. You can trust I'm clever. I've been direct public prosecutions. And he quite clearly, incredibly incompetent, indecisive. I don't see any evidence of integrity at all on some of the key issues. And he whatever it is you have to have the X factor and be a leader or be a Prime Minister, he ain't got it.
And the one thing he really doesn't have is the ability to do politics.
Yeah,
he
ironically.
may well be a good lawyer. I don't know. I can't profess to know about that profession. But he cannot do politics. And I think that you need to be able to do that. It's a really basic thing of going into it.
You need to communicate. You need to speak human.
Yeah. But that's what, he does this thing where he outsources things. He outsourced the policy and the politics to Morgan McSweeney. He outsourced the communications to the 4 people who've done that in the last year. The fact is that his view is, I'm a leader, I'll get everybody else to do these things, and I won't muddy my hands with the dirty bits of politics. Well, guess what? It's hit you like a freight train, and you've been standing there.
I think the key thing is you can judge people, whether they're running a business or whether they're a politician, by who they hire to advise them and who they have to do the work for them, because they are a representative of you. And if you're hiring people, and again, Mr. Son of a Toolmaker, who owned the factory, claiming class warfare, but this is a man who, is a toolmaker who a workman who blames his own tools. It's a direct communications fault. It's the chief of staff's fault. 2 chief of staffs.
3.
3.
There was one for a couple of days.
Who knew? It's the fault. It's the fault of the cabinet secretary. It's the fault of the vetting services. Does anyone believe for a nanosecond that the security services didn't give full information on Mandelson?
Hold on a second. Who am I going to believe? Am I going to believe the security services or Peter Mandelson, and you choose Peter Mandelson?
That's the giveaway, isn't it?
That's what happened.
This is the thing. For somebody who is apparently a top acclaimed KC, a top barrister, Keir Starmer, apparently Mandelson lied to him, and he's basically saying that this guy Matthew Doyle lied to him as well. Well, it's like, I'm sorry, you must be useless as a dad, because you should be able to know when your teenager's lying to you. The whole thing, it's actually embarrassing watching him flounder this badly, Claire.
It is, and you get these, I'm going to have a reset, and you're now going to see the real Keir. Now we've got all of these other people whose fault it was out of the way. This is the real me, and you just think, no, it isn't.
I just don't want
to.
We've seen the real you.
Absolutely.
We've seen the real you.
We
We don't
know
like
what the real you is. We don't like it. I don't think he's going to last much past 7th of May with all of the elections coming up.
Well, there you are.
Really
Got the predictions out them, didn't we? Always great. Peter Cole, when are you next on?
Friday, 10 o'clock.
Lovely. Friday at 10. Oh, are you me?
I'm you.
Excellent. Are you identifying?
I'm identifying as Julia Hartley-Brewer. No better way to spend a Friday morning.
Oh, there'll be calls. Claire Pearsall, we're locking the studio door after he goes. She's staying in. We're going to take your calls up next. Interestingly, about actually something before we went to PMQs, the Prime Minister had made a statement which Kemi Badenoch associated herself with that awful stabbing in a North London school yesterday, and of course, this horrible shooting in Canada. We've got calls on both of those topics up next, so stay tuned for that. This is Talk.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. This is Talk the Home of Common Sense. 12:28 is the time. Let's get straight to calls, actually both about topics which were raised at the beginning of Prime Minister's questions by Keir Starmer. Absolutely horrific, violent attacks, both here and abroad. Let's go straight to Stuart, who is in Wigan. And Stuart, you want to talk about this horrific stabbing at a North London school that's left two children, 12 and 13-year-old, fighting for their lives, and a 13-year-old suspect being held by the police.
Yeah, well, first of all, can I just pull you up on something that I'm sick of people saying?
Please do.
And I agree with you, with what you're saying, to be honest, about the Islamophobia and this, that and the other. You know, you can't judge them all by saying... I get you. I do understand that, and I do believe it. But at the end of the day, there's got to come to a point where you've got to pick a side. You know what I mean? When Ireland were going on and this, that and the other, we had the Irish people turning around and saying, you're not doing this in my name.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, I'm half Irish, but no one ever came up to me and no one assumed that I was to blame for what the IRA were doing, though. No, and you weren't. But what I'm saying is they're keeping very quiet. You know what I mean? It's like the so-called self-appointed community leaders don't seem to be speaking up. I know. I agree with you on that. I think you're right. That's an issue. And the reason why you're touching on that, of course, is because witnesses, all these kids in this school classroom, when these 12 and 13-year-old boys were stabbed, said that the attackers shouted "Allahu Akbar." Counter-terrorism police are investigating, but they haven't said it was a terrorist attack yet. What do you make of that?
Well, we all know what it was. It was a terrorist attack. It's just another one. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm sick to death of all this, because you're not going to be able to name the little scroat. You're not going to be able to name him at all. And at the end of the day, what you should do, forget about sending him jail, get his family, get his extended family, and send them all back to where they originally come from.
Even if the suspect and the suspect's parents were born in this country?
Yeah.
You're saying just done now? Because
at the end of the day, it's like that Afghan that's been done as well. Do you know what I mean?
The Afghan migrant,
I'd stop it because I'd hang them from every light on streets, me. I'd have them hung from every light on street. You touch a kid, you touch one of my kids, there's no sympathy coming from me.
I don't think anyone's got any sympathy. I mean, unless some politicians seem to have not an issue. But that's the thing. I mean, look, you're a hang 'em and flog 'em, and a lot of people in the country and a lot of people watching and listening to this will be agreeing with you. But we don't have guilt by association in this country. It's not like the Soviet Union or North Korea.
No, you haven't. But how many people that have abused kids?
Yeah.
And I'm going back to rape gangs as well.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you've got in London there all them MPs in House of Commons and everywhere else, and as far as I'm concerned, not one of them has done enough. All they've done is cover up them rape gangs and everything else.
Yeah. There were a few who did try, and they were their careers were stymied. No, I understand your anger, Stuart, I really do. And again, I don't believe that any of these things are too hard to tackle. And certainly we've got the people who've been convicted of the grooming gangs in some cases where they've got dual nationality, but they've torn up their British passport, their Pakistani passport or something, so we can't send them home. It's like, we absolutely can. But there we are. Thank you for that, Stuart. Joan is in Sunderland. Joan, you want to talk about this shooting at a school in Canada, in a small town in Canada, where the media were reporting what the police had said, that it was a female in a dress with brown hair, when, of course, the mass killer, killing 9 people and then killing themselves and 25 injured, was in fact, and it was very easy to find this out within very short space of time, was in fact male and identified as trans.
Yes, well, first of all, I want to say thank you to you for actually having the nerve to call this out. I am absolutely fed up of this wokery. they would have us believe black is white, right is wrong, and up is down. I am so sick of it. I am sick of that useless BBC when that female presenter stood there and said, a pregnant person, woman. When is this rubbish going to end?
She corrected it, said woman, and then she got disciplined for it. She was reprimanded for it.
Exactly. But this has got to stop. I mean, I'm nearly 86-year-old. This is a new world to me.
Yeah, it's a new world to all of us. Then look, 10 years ago, 10, 12 years, I think about 2012 actually was roughly when this started coming in. But like 10 years ago, everyone would have thought this was insane. But the fact that we can hear or watch a news report and genuinely go, I've no idea if that's a man or a woman because someone has said female in a dress, you think these crimes aren't committed by women. We've got Scottish politicians defending men who call themselves women, Isla Bryson, who've been convicted of 2 rapes, wanting to be in a women's jail because they think they're women. I mean, we live in insane and terrifying times.
Well, when I go out, I think my daughter's terrified when she goes out with me, because if I say something, she'll say, Mother, you can't say that.
Yes.
And I say, why?
Imagine being my daughter.
Yes. I think she wants to just disappear anywhere she could. And it's just so ridiculous. I am fed up to the back teeth of the whole flaming lot.
With you all the way, Joan. Thank you very much. Claire Bissell's been nodding away to that. But it is the things that... And you sort of think, well, it doesn't matter. What matters is that a load of people have died. It's absolutely horrific. An awful crime has been perpetrated. But the truth matters.
Yeah, of
the
course
truth,
it does.
facts, the truth, reality matters.
And that matters more than anything else. I don't care if it hurts somebody's feelings or somebody feels offended by it or triggered by it. I don't care. People have died. This is appalling. We need to know the facts. We want to know what's being dealt with, especially...
Whether it's a stabbing in North London or
if it's a shooting in Canada. We have the right to know the facts of the story.
We can't know the facts because we're all bigots.
We're not.
Did you not get the memo? Did you not get the memo, Claire?
Clearly not.
Anyway, I told you. 12:34 is. I mean, and we're laughing about it. I'm no way.
But you have to.
Yeah, I'm no way. I'm making light of a horrific crime. The important thing is that people have died, and it's horrific. But this is very, very, very dangerous, slippery slope. We're going to talk about this with Debbie Hayton up next. Well, we're also going to be talking about the latest polls saying that, well, frankly, people think that Prince Andrew, should be forced to testify before Congress about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, what he knew and when, and they want the King to do that. We'll talk to the Chief Executive of Republic, Graham Smith, about that. No booing at the back. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. 12:37 is the time. Let's go straight to my next guest now. He's Debbie Hayton. He's a journalist, teacher and author of Transsexual Apostate, My Journey Back to Reality. Very good afternoon to you, Debbie.
Good afternoon, Julie.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now, look, I just want to clarify for people who don't already know who you are, you're regular on the show, but you are a man who chooses to live as if you were a woman, but you are fully aware of your biological reality, and you've often written and fought back against people who want to deny that reality, haven't you?
Well, yes, and everybody else in my real-life existence knows that either. There's no point hiding anything, and I don't want to hide anything.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. So what was your reaction just initially when you saw the reports this morning, waking up to the horrible, horrible news of this mass school shooting in Canada? At least 9 killed, the shooter then turning the gun on themselves, 25 injured in this tiny little British Columbian town. When you saw the reports and it was claiming that it was a female in a dress with brown hair, did you, like me, did your spidey senses immediately just go, women largely don't commit mass shootings? Indeed, in Canada and the UK, there's no record of a woman ever doing so. And in America, it's the tiniest handful of cases involving women. Did you immediately think, I bet this isn't a woman?
I thought it was an odd way to actually describe the person who'd been doing the shooting. But that aside, I was just horrified yet again. I'm a teacher. Children I teach come to school to learn. And this is a tiny secondary school in the middle of the countryside. Apparently it has 160 children from years 8 to 13.
Yeah.
You know, this is a dreadful tragedy. And then I looked at the reports and I thought, I thought, this doesn't make sense to me. How can I make this make sense? And we shouldn't be doing that. Looking through what's actually happened, that report, I think, was taken from the initial police warning that went out. And if you see a figure that might look like a woman from a distance wearing a dress, take cover, because that's the person we're talking about. But clearly, the person who's doing the shooting is now dead, and it poses no further threat. And it's really incumbent on the RCMP in Canada and the Canadian news media organisations, our news organisations, to put the record straight.
Yeah.
It helps nobody to hide behind obfuscations and in clarity. It's right that people know the truth about this, and not to hide.
And it does matter. I mean, people will be very specific about, someone arriving in a school at 10:24 or be very specific about these things. Well, we need to be specific about who commits the crime. And we've had this issue. I mean, Scotland has gone completely mad on it, but mainstream media in this country and in America and in Canada has really, really gone woke crazy on this stuff. Will routinely, newspapers here and online here will routinely report things which are factually untrue. They will report that a boy has died or a girl has died when actually it is the opposite sex because they don't want to misgender. I mean, and not correct it. And some of the time I'm actually going, I actually don't know who this person is, and yet this is one of the most key facts. We know people's names and we know their sex. That's kind of like the key, and their age. Those are kind of the key facts about people because they are the most relevant facts. But in particular, in the case of violent crime, largely women don't commit violent crime. I mean, some small, few instances, but the vast majority of women who are behind bars in this country and in every country are for non-violent offences. So when there is a very, very horrific violent crime involving multiple victims, instantly every journalist at the BBC, ITV, Sky and everywhere else should be going, this probably isn't a woman. We'll be careful about this. But they didn't do that. They stuck to it. They didn't do any investigation. But we know if it was a victim who was trans, because we understand this is a 15-year-old boy who identifies as a girl, gun crazy. If it had been a trans victim, they'd have talked non-stop about that, as they did about the tragedy of the killing of Brianna Ghey, who was a boy. Who was living as if he was a girl and was treated as a girl by his parents, and he was killed. He was not targeted for being gay, but most of the media reports go on and on and on about this trans killing because he was trans identified, but they ignore it when it's the perpetrator. Why do you think that is?
It seems to be that being trans makes you some sort of special human being, different to everybody else. It's total nonsense, Julie. It really is. We're exactly the same as everybody else, with the same failings as everybody else. And it's our responsibility to contribute the same as everybody else to our societies and communities. But we've told this lie to children and their parents that they can be the opposite sex, they can be who they like. And this lie is a serious lie. And it's one that children have built their lives up over. And it's hollow and there's nothing there. And standing aside from this case, I worry about mentally distressed children in severe psychological distress who have been told that identifying as trans can be the answer to all your problems, and everybody is going to listen to you, and you don't need to listen to your parents anymore because you know something special, and there's nothing there. And when the children see there's nothing there, what is left for them? And taking responsibility should be doctors, it should be politicians, it should be the people who've enabled this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is extraordinary that we're still in this scenario in our schools. And again, it's all being perpetrated by teachers. It's happening in our schools and in our universities, and of course our politicians as well, and certainly in the NHS. One set of politicians are particularly bad on this. The SNP, the Scottish National Party, they spent, now it appears, more than £1 million of taxpayers' hard-earned money on failed legal cases, arguing that biologically male trans-identified people should be defined as women in particular, so they can put them into women's prisons. Seems to be a big thing. But case after case, that Supreme Court ruling on gender last April, and then battling other big cases largely against For Women Scotland, that brilliant campaign group. But they are battling. They're battling right now, desperately in court, for the right to put men, even men who've committed violence, not against women now, they've given up on that one, but men against violence against other. You could be a man who's murdered a man, but they want the right of that man, if he calls himself Sheila, to go into a women's prison. But this is insane. If you've got the politicians spending hard-earned taxpayers' money fighting legal cases to basically live a lie.
And spending other people's money to do it. It's not their own money they're spending, it's other people's money. And you'd think they'd learn after the Isla Bryson fiasco several years ago. Well, how do these people not learn? But it's really down to the public of Scotland not to re-elect these people. But that we need to wait for the ballot box for that.
Yeah, I mean, again, the British public, largely, Scottish, Welsh, Irish and English, don't have any time for this. It's a very small minority of people. Unfortunately, the minority of people are in basically the media classes, the quangos, leading the NHS, leading the BBC, leading politicians. They have captured so many of the police, leading police chiefs. They've captured so many top echelons of our institutions. How do we break away from this? And by the way, people want to live, want to wear the clothing that's normally typified for some of the opposite sex, and call yourself by whatever name you want. Fill your boots. I don't think anyone cares. I think people are papally understanding and welcoming, but not when we're all expected to tell a lie about it.
Yes, and people need to be either to take personal responsibility for what they've done or face up to the consequences that have been imposed on them. So when politicians enable this and they take an actual decision to enable to put a dangerous, violent offender in a woman's prison and a woman gets hurt by that, then those politicians really should be in a position where they're facing personal sanctions themselves for taking those decisions.
Absolutely, and that is the issue. There never are those personal sanctions, are there? Debbie Hayden, thank you as always for talking to us, author of Transsexual Apostate, My Journey Back to Reality. Claire Pissell, listening to all of that. I mean, Debbie's a fantastic campaigner on these issues. And again, it's just about being honest. It's just about facts.
And I think that's what he does, lays it out there really clearly, that this is his choice to live that way, call himself whatever, wear whatever he wants. But let's not forget that other people have the right to do it. You don't need to bend everything around them and make them special cases.
Yeah, absolutely. And the lies that are told to these young people, and again, often very troubled young people. And then they're told being trans, identifying as trans, that will be the solution to your problems. And it very rarely is. It would transpire. 12:46 is the time. Talking about the solution to the problems for the royals. Is it to force Andrew, as was Prince Andrew, now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, to testify in Congress? That's what the American politicians are calling for. That's what the British public want the King to do. But has the King, as we were discussing a lot on the show this week, has he done enough to distance the royal family from a man who, for many years was actually third in line to the throne after Charles? We'll talk about that up next. This is Talk.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. Final topic today, one that's actually been in the front page news for days and days and days now, and that is, of course, years, you could argue, really, is Andrew, former Prince Andrew, now Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, stripped of his HRH and his title, but, of course, still a man facing huge number of allegations in regard of not just what he did with Jeffrey Epstein, with allegations involving young women being trafficked to him, and Virginia Giuffre, of course, the 17-year-old who said she was trafficked to him at the time when, well, he paid her 10 million quid, even though apparently he'd never met her, even though the photograph of him with her, we now know from the Epstein files, was completely legitimate. But also these claims about him basically handing over confidential information to Jeffrey Epstein, similar to allegations that Peter Mandelson now faces as well, and is being investigated for this, though, when Andrew was the UK trade envoy. Well, let's talk right now about a new poll which has suggested, post the Epstein files, that 82% of respondents think that King Charles should encourage his brother to give evidence to police in the US. Only 6% thought he should not. This is a YouGov poll for Sky News. But also 45% said that the King has done all he can to distance himself from the royal family from Andrew. But 39%, so pretty close, thought the King should be doing more. And a majority, 63%, thought that the King should not let Andrew live on the Sandringham estate, because he's moved him from his big fancy royal lodge to, well, another pretty big fancy home, bigger than most of the homes we live in. Well, let's talk about all of this now with Graham Smith. He's Chief Executive of Republic, the campaign for an elected head of state. He's also author of a book, says exactly what it is on the tin, Abolish the Monarchy. Good afternoon to you, Graham.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Thanks for joining us. I mean, I know you've also carried out a poll, but let's talk first of all about this poll carried out by Sky with YouGov. Basically, you know, 8 out of 10 people in the country think that Andrew should go and testify before Congress, but I don't think anyone realistically believes he will.
No, of course he won't. I mean, no one in their right mind would in his position. He's not compelled to, and obviously it will put him in a very difficult situation. And we know that, you know, sitting in front of a BBC reporter, he managed to completely mess that up. So sitting in front of a panel of US politicians, he wouldn't last 2 minutes. But I think this whole thing about US Congress misses the point. The first thing he should be doing is going to a police station in London and answering questions in the presence of his lawyer under caution. And that's what needs to happen. And same with this question that you quoted about, you know, Charles distancing the royals from Andrew. He shouldn't be distancing the royals from Andrew. He should be owning this whole thing, because it is a royal scandal. It is, you know, Charles and William are very much implicated in all of this in terms of what. Well, there have been incredible reports from people like Andrew Lowney, whose book came out late last year, that the late Queen knew about a lot of this years ago, and it has always been said over the last 2 decades that I've been campaigning on this, that, you know, William and Charles were hands-on. They were very much involved as senior members of the royal family. They all talked about the future of the monarchy. They would have been briefed, you know, and yes, people say, oh, you don't know that, you don't know what they knew. No, but anybody with a half a brain will know that they would have been briefed, so they knew what was coming down the line.
They would have read the same newspaper reports that we've read over the years.
And at the very least, they should have asked questions, and unlike the rest of us, they would have been able to get answers.
Well, that's the interesting thing, because very early on when this emerged, well, the Epstein files, we spoke to Di Davis, former head of Royal Protection. He was very, very clear that, you know, you've got, you know, close protection officers with Andrew, staying at Epstein's home. They'd have full records of all this. They know what's going on. They know who's invited to the Buckingham Palace, and that information would have gone up the ranks in the Met, and it would have gone to the late Queen Elizabeth's senior staff as well. This was verified also by Dick Arbiter, former press secretary of the Queen, that this information would have gone up the ranks. It is highly unlikely that certainly the Prince of Wales, as then was now the King Charles, his staff wouldn't have been made aware of it, and he wouldn't have been made aware. So what should they have done at that time?
Well, they should have insisted that these things were put into the public domain, that the police, this is the most important thing, the police should have been told without any doubt whatsoever that they are free to pursue the evidence whichever way it leads without fear of any consequences on them. Now, Andrew Lowney has said that he's spoken to police officers who raised questions. They were on the Royal Protection Squad, and then they found themselves booted off the Royal Protection Squad and back on the beat.
Very interesting.
So, there is a serious problem here. Collusion appears to have taken place within the palace, within the civil service, political ranks and police in order to keep this completely away.
I mean, that's the thing. I think there's probably, and you'll know as well as I do, an awful lot of respect people have for the late Queen Elizabeth. People may not want to sort of implicate her, but again, she was the person, the buck stopped with her. That £10 million payoff, we understand, to Virginia Giuffre was partly funded by her, and there's a lot of people saying, one of my callers remember saying, if I asked my mum for 10 million quid, she might ask what it was for. So are you saying basically Andrew should have been hung out to dry and basically said, you're on your own, and if they, make you go, to ask, to answer questions in Congress, not that we can force him to do so, but they should have been helping with inquiries. Now, Buckingham Palace, but on behalf of the King, put out a statement yesterday saying, or day before yesterday, saying that they would be assisting the police. They would, they would help with it anyway. Do you think, honestly, that until that point they were not helping in any way and they were blocking?
Well, I would think so, but to be honest, I don't suppose they had a lot to block, because the police have shown themselves very reluctant to pursue any of this. Now, I reported them, Andrew, on Monday morning to do with the leaking of information because the case looked almost identical to the Mandelson case. So I thought, well, that can't go unanswered. But a week before, I'd reported the question of trafficked women, women being trafficked to Royal Lodge in 2010, and that barely got mentioned. The palace certainly hasn't responded to that. Now, if you look at Norway, for example, who are facing their own big scandal, the son-in-law of the heir to the throne is being prosecuted for rape. He's actually going to court, and his mum, the wife of the heir, has been implicated in the Epstein thing. Now, they have said, quite honestly, look, we're a family. We stand with him on a personal level. He's our son. We love him. We support him, but he has to stand up and own up to his responsibilities.
He has pleaded not guilty. We need to.
Absolutely, but they have said, look, you have to face the music and deal with this. And if you are not guilty, then fine. But but none of that has been.
He shouldn't be protected. Well, we know also extraordinarily after the Virginia Giuffre allegations and the picture of the two of them, and of course we know that Prince Andrew was denying for many years this picture was actually genuine. But there's very serious allegations, very specific. There's lots of, and then we have the questions in Newsnight. But it made absolutely categorically clear the police, the Metropolitan Police, at no point interviewed Prince Andrew, as he then was, about these alleged crimes, which is extraordinary given the number of interviews they insist on having with people who've written a hurty tweet.
Well, I mean, the point is that they said things like, it's a long time ago. They have successfully prosecuted sexual offences going back 40, 30 years. This Virginia Giuffre was 25 years ago. The more recent allegations are 15 years ago, and also there was a law that came in force after the Virginia Giuffre accusations to do with trafficking, which clearly apply. And yet, they're still sitting on their hands and doing nothing.
You also have done your own poll. We were just talking about that one for the Sky, but you've done your own poll, a new Savanta poll carried out for Republic at the weekend, showing support for the monarchy at just 45%, and a third of people now wanting elect a head of state. Now, I remember discussing this with you when the late Queen was still alive about there was an awful lot of personal respect and love and admiration for her and her duties on the throne for many years, and there was an expectation, I think, from a lot of people that actually that would fall away once King Charles acceded to the throne. He seems to be, I think, rather more popular than I had expected, because I don't think he was that popular a Prince of Wales. But is this poll what you expect?
I think the thing is that, with the popularity, I think people think, you ring us, is he doing a good job? That's what they mean by popularity. Most people don't really care one way or other about him. But, and when you're in the job, you have that kind of benefit of incumbencies, and politicians get the same benefit. But I mean, you know, the support for the monarchy as an institution has collapsed pretty quickly because, you know, you go back to 2012, you know, Jubilee, and the year of the Olympics and all the rest of it, you know, the support for the monarchy was way over 70%. So it's gone down a hell of a long way. And the problem they have is that people don't mind criticising and challenging Charles. You know, when Charles gets heckled, those heckles never happen to the Queen.
No.
You know, they don't mind challenging William. And those are the only two people left, apart from Camilla and Kate, who are sort of on the sidelines a little bit. So, you know, they don't have much left in their armoury. The Queen was the monarchy for so many people, so many years before she died. People said, I like her, I don't like the rest of them. And that is compounded by these huge scandals that are coming out.
Yeah, they're very interesting to talk to you. I know a lot of people be shouting at the radio now, know my audience, but great to get your point of view. And Graham Smith, Chief Executive of Republic, author of the book Abolish the Monarchy. He's very clear about what he thinks, Claire Pearsall. But there's no doubt at all, this is once again a very dangerous time. They've gone through plenty of them,
Yes.
and you know, in the firm at the palace. But this is a very dangerous time for them. And then they really, in my view, they really need to and should have always thrown Andrew to the wolves.
Yeah, they should have done. They should have done it a lot sooner than they did. But, I mean, they have done it. I just think that an elected head of state